Chapter 1. 2031 AD, Doomsday. Base, Area A Corpse Farm. Mo sure wore a mask. He held a crowbar in one hand and a plate in the other. He walked slowly along the aisle. There were 3 palm-sized pieces of fresh pork on the plate. In this era, each person could only receive 3 steamed buns and 3 bowls of porridge every day. Pork was definitely a luxury food. Mo sure came to the end of the aisle. He heard an excited roar coming from the room. Roar, roar, at the same time, it was accompanied by the clattering of chains. He looked through the plexiglass on the door. He saw that the guy inside was tightly chained up. He opened the iron door and walked in with the fresh meat. At the same time, he used a crowbar to hold the door to prevent it from being closed by the wind. In the room, there was a zombie chained up. The zombie's left arm was broken. The flesh on its knee was pierced by the broken leg bone, and a pale leg bone was exposed. Its nose was long gone, replaced by a horrible bloody hole. Half of its face was badly mutilated. It saw Mo sure coming in and became even more excited. Its gray eyes were full of bloodthirsty light. Roar, it made a beast-like roar from its throat and pounced on Mo sure. Clatter, the iron chain was suddenly straightened. Mo sure subconsciously took a step back. He waited for a moment. The zombie's pounce was not so fierce. He reluctantly threw the fresh pork on the plate to the zombie. The zombie pounced on Mo sure to no avail, and roared a few more times. Then it lay on the ground, grabbed the meat and bit it like a beast. It ate until its mouth and chest were full of blood. Mo sure could not help but swallow, shook his head and said, "What a waste." It had been more than 3 months since he transmigrated to the apocalypse. Every day, he was sent to feed these experimental zombies. He sent meat to the zombies, but he could not eat a single bite. A human's life was worse than a zombie's. He retreated from the room, removed the crowbar, and closed the door. Next, it was time to feed the pigs. In the corpse farm, his daily job was to feed the pigs and then feed the zombies with pork. This was the least technical and most inconspicuous job in the entire base. However, Mo sure was very calm. Raising zombies and pigs in the base was better than being sent out to catch zombies. The members of the corpse hunters looked glorious and worshipped. But if he wasn't careful, he would lose his life. At the end of the world, survival was the way to go. After feeding the pigs, Mo sure slowly strolled out of the corpses. Although his job was looked down upon, the advantage was that he had more free time. When he had time, he would wander around to relieve his boredom. After exiting the corpse farm and turning right for 500 meters, they arrived at the laboratory. Just as Mo sure strolled to the entrance of the laboratory, a voice suddenly rang out in his mind. It has been 100 days since the host transmigrated. The sign-in system has been activated. You can sign in now. Mo sure immediately became excited. After transmigrating for 100 days, he finally got the gold finger. He immediately tried to speak in his mind. System, sign in. The system's voice sounded frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, 1 Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer. The next moment, an item display panel similar to a game backpack appeared in his mind. Obviously, this was the system's backpack. In the first compartment of the system backpack, there was already a syringe. The syringe was filled with an aquamarine potion. When he focused on the potion, 2 lines of text appeared on the potion. Frowny face Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer. After injection, you will have the Titan Dragon Gene and greatly increase your strength. The first injection can unlock the Titan Dragon Claw. Mo sure subconsciously looked around. Then, he quickly walked back to the corpse farm, entered his room, and closed the door. With a thought, the Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer appeared in his hand. He looked at the aquamarine potion in his hand. He licked his lips and suppressed the excitement in his heart. When his hands no longer trembled with excitement, he clenched his left fist. He held the gun-style syringe with his right hand and pressed it against his left arm. He exerted a little force with his right index finger and began to inject. He only felt a needle-like pain. Soon, the injection was completed. At this moment, a vision suddenly appeared in Emosher's mind. He saw the shadow of a dragon that was hundreds of meters long. It was flapping its huge wings and sweeping across the sky. Roar! A long and oppressive dragon roar sounded. On the ground, hundreds of beasts were terrified and crawling on the ground. This dragon, although only a shadow, was full of majestic and domineering long way. Emosher was so shocked that he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. The shadow of the dragon circled in the sky 3 times. Then, it swooped straight down towards Emosher. Seeing this, Emosher suddenly felt his hands and feet turn cold. He wanted to turn around and escape. But he found that he seemed to be imprisoned by some mysterious force and couldn't move at all. Whoosh! The shadow of the dragon swept down from the sky with a violent and unparalleled power. It was like a dark cloud that enveloped Emosher. It opened its huge mouth and suddenly swallowed Emosher. Emosher suddenly felt his vision go black. In the next moment, he opened his eyes in horror. Only then did he realize that it was only a vision in his mind. But even so, his hands and feet had already turned cold. That feeling was too terrifying. It was just an injection, and it was already so scary. Would he dare to inject it again in the future? Speaking of which, wasn't the Titan dragon an ancient dinosaur in his memory? Why did he see a flying dragon in his mind? Just as he was wondering, his body began to heat up. Gradually, it became hotter and hotter. As his body temperature rose, he became more and more sensitive to his own body. He seemed to be able to feel all the blood vessels, nerves, and every cell in his body. He could clearly feel the medicine flowing along his blood vessels and throughout his body. Eventually, it acted on every cell. These cells seemed to have been strongly stimulated and quickly became active. Every cell was filled with vitality. In just 5 minutes, he felt that there seemed to be a surging power in his body. This feeling of being filled with power made him unable to help but throw a punch. Unexpectedly, this punch hit the bed frame next to him. Bang! With a loud sound, the steel pipe on the bedside was actually bent by him. Emosher immediately widened his eyes. How much strength did it take to bend a steel pipe with a diameter of 3 centimeters on the bed frame with one punch? He retracted his fist. There wasn't even a scratch on his fist. Gulp! He swallowed his saliva. Emosher looked out of the window through the curtains. Not many people noticed the noise just now. He turned around. He pressed the steel pipe with one hand and grabbed the place where he had bent it with the other hand. He pulled it hard. Creak! With a soft sound, the steel pipe was actually pulled back by him. Emosher exclaimed in his heart. The Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer's increase in strength was really terrifying. And at this moment, his right arm became hot again. He raised his hand to look. He saw that his right arm was actually changing rapidly. His body was thin, and his arm was slightly thin. But at this moment, it was actually becoming thicker quickly. The next moment. Hiss! His entire sleeve was torn apart. Soon, his right arm had swelled to 3 times its previous size. At the same time, his originally soft skin began to become hard. Gradually, black snake-like scales began to appear on the hard surface of its skin. Each scale was the size of a fingernail and emitted a black metallic luster. And his right hand was no longer a human arm. Instead, it was as thick and powerful as a dragon's claw. His fingertips quickly became longer, curved, and powerful. It was a little like an eagle's claw. But it was thicker and sharper than an eagle's claw. Emosher looked at his right arm in shock. Suddenly, he recalled the giant dragon phantom that appeared in his mind just now. Dragon claw! He exclaimed in disbelief. Could it be that there really was such a Titan dragon in this world? After coming back to his senses, his eyes were filled with excitement. He was so excited that his neck was red and his face was hot. Gulp. He swallowed his saliva. He couldn't wait to try the power of this dragon claw on the spot. But thinking about it, if others knew that his right arm was actually a dragon claw, what would the consequences be? He didn't dare to imagine. Just as he was thinking this, the black scales on his right arm slowly sank into the skin. His arm also began to return to its human appearance. His fingernails quickly shortened and straightened. His right hand also completely returned to its normal appearance. Phew, Mo sure let out a long breath. Looking at his right hand, he was very excited. But when he saw the pieces of cloth on the ground, he smiled bitterly. This Titan dragon claw is awesome, but it's a waste of sleeves. It seemed that he had to prepare more clothes in the future. After obtaining the Titan dragon claw, he was excited for more than an hour. More than an hour later, he finally suppressed the excitement in his heart. This matter must not be known to others. He was just an ordinary person yesterday, and today he had such a fortuitous encounter. If others knew about this, it was likely to cause a lot of trouble. For the rest of the afternoon, Mo sure fed the pigs and zombies as usual. He didn't show any abnormalities. But in his mind, from time to time, he would recall the images he saw before. That giant dragon, and that oppressive dragon roar. Early the next morning, as soon as he opened his eyes, Mo sure was full of anticipation and wanted to sign in. But there was a difference in the location. He thought about it and immediately got up. Without even washing his face, he came to the door of the zombie room. Rubbing his hands, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." The system replied instantly, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, zombie room. Sign in reward, Virus X antibody. His attention was on the light blue medicine in his backpack. Virus X antibody, after injection, produce antibodies to Virus X, will not be infected and mutated into a zombie. Hearing this, Mo sure was overjoyed. Virus X swept the world, turning most people into zombies. The laboratory next door did this for so long, wasn't it just to find antibodies? He didn't expect to get the Virus X antibody so easily when he signed in at the system. With joy, he injected the antibody into himself. His body seemed to have a slight change. But what exactly the change was, he couldn't tell. That morning, when he went to feed the zombies, a thought flashed through his mind. If he was bitten by a zombie now, he wouldn't become a zombie, right? Chapter 2. Mo sure looked at the zombie and a thought appeared in his mind. If he was bitten by this zombie now, he wouldn't be infected, right? But as soon as this thought flashed through his mind, he strangled it to death. It was better not to try this kind of thing. Never try it in this life. The next day, Mo sure continued to sign in at the entrance of the laboratory. He also received the Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer. However, after this injection, although his strength had increased a lot, But the same phenomenon did not appear in his mind again. After this injection, his left arm would also turn into a dragon claw. But it didn't. He couldn't help but ask, "System, why can't my left arm turn into a dragon claw this time?" The system replied, frowny face, with the host's current physical strength, it can only withstand the power of one dragon claw. When the host's body is strengthened to a certain extent, the dragon claw on the left arm can be unlocked. Mo sure nodded, that makes sense. Then he asked expectantly, then when my body is strong enough, my entire body can turn into a dragon. Is it the dragon phantom I see in my mind? The system replied, frowny face, yes. Mo sure's eyes sparkled when he heard this. He seemed to have seen the day when he could transform into a Titan dragon. Roaming the sky. With a dragon's roar, all beasts were terrified. For the next year, Mo sure continued to sign in every day. The rewards he received were different at different locations. Most of the things he signed in next to the laboratory were Titan Dragon Gene Enhancers. But there were exceptions. Next to the laboratory. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, mutated gecko gene enhancer. Mosher focused on the gene enhancer in his backpack. Mutated gecko gene enhancer, after injection, broken limbs can be regrown. He immediately returned to his residence and injected this gene enhancer. He was secretly happy. From now on, even if he lost his arms or legs, they could grow back. Other than that, he would receive recovery potions when he signed in at the hospital. After using the recovery potion, his stamina could be recovered quickly. If he was injured, it could also speed up the healing of the wound. When he signed in at the base cafeteria, he received a lot of fresh food. If he gets it from the tap room, he will get 1 bottle of clean mineral water. At the end of the world, these things were even more precious than gold. If they were to leave the base in the future, they wouldn't have to worry about food and water. In the past year, he had already injected more than 30 gene enhancers. He didn't know how much his strength had increased. Anyway, he had accidentally knocked over the bed and crushed a glass several times already. Of course, he would occasionally receive special things from signing in. For example, one day, he signed in beside the slaughterhouse. Sign in successful. Sign in location, slaughterhouse. Sign in reward, 1 bloodthirsty corpse slayer. He checked his backpack. Bloodthirsty zombie slayer, the moment it comes into contact with a zombie, it will absorb the zombie's blood. Convert it into a strong acid and release it. The stronger the power, the more acid the blade can convert. Mosher had secretly tested this knife when he was feeding the zombies that day. He quietly made a small cut on the zombie's leg. As a result, under the corrosion of the strong acid, the wound quickly enlarged. In the end, he could see the bones inside. One could imagine that if he slashed the zombie fiercely, it would probably be able to directly cut the zombie in half. Another strange item was the brain cell enhancer. This thing could stimulate brain cells and strengthen brain waves. Thus, it could enhance one's perception. After injecting the brain cell enhancer once, he felt refreshed and his eyes clear. Within a radius of 10 meters, even if 2 mosquitoes were doing something shameless, he could clearly sense it with his eyes closed. However, although his strength had far exceeded that of ordinary people, he still had no intention of exposing himself. Instead, he still worked diligently every day, just like other ordinary people. With the system, he had to go out and show off. Come on. It was already the end of the world, what was there to show off and show off? Survival was the way to go. Therefore, it was better to make a fortune quietly. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. On this day, after he finished feeding the zombies, he passed by the training ground of the corpse hunters. There were a few corpse hunters on the training ground. They were doing strength training while discussing something. When they saw Mosher pass by, they only glanced at him and continued to discuss. They were the corpse hunters, the strongest in the base. Mosher was just a pig farmer, the weakest in the base. Therefore, when they saw Mosher, they completely treated him as air. One of the team members was doing squats while saying, "Did you know that yesterday, the captain punched out 270 kilograms?" One of the team members suddenly exclaimed, "Damn, 270 kilograms? That's 100 kilograms more than me." Another team member also said with a face full of surprise, "There are 20 corpse hunters in the base, and the strongest of the other teams can only punch out 244 kilograms. Compared to that, the captain is really an animal." Hearing this, Mosher's heart slightly moved. In order not to expose himself, he had not tested his strength before. He did not know how strong he was now. Why not find a chance to try? Seeing that Mosher didn't leave, the other members of the corpse hunters burst into laughter one after another. Although they did not say anything, it could be seen from their expressions. They didn't even spare a glance at Mosher, a pig farmer. They were talking about real men. Would a pig farmer be able to understand him? Emosher did not mind. He rubbed his nose and slowly left. At noon that day, Emosher came to the cafeteria. Seeing the steamed buns and porridge in the cafeteria, he felt that he had no appetite. He was about to throw up after eating these things every day. Fortunately, he had a trick up his sleeve. He said in his mind, "System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, base cafeteria. Sign in reward, 2 bottles of beer, 5 barbecue skewers." After receiving this reward, Emosher walked out of the cafeteria with a satisfied smile on his face. He bumped into his colleague from the corpse farm. Seeing that Emosher was about to leave, he asked curiously, "Why, not eating anymore?" Emosher shook his head and said, "It's steamed buns and porridge every day. I have no appetite." His colleague smiled and said, "After all, the environment is like this now. Those who can stutter are thankful. Just make do." Emosher let out a sigh and said, "Sigh, I'm not eating anymore." Then he left the cafeteria and returned to his room. He closed the door and drew the curtains. He took out beer and meat skewers from his space backpack. His saliva was already flowing out. He opened the beer and gulped down 2 mouthfuls. Burp, he let out a long burp. Awesome. Then he picked up the meat skewers and stuffed his mouth full of meat. Beer and skewers, I missed you so much. While the others received a fixed amount of steamed buns and porridge, Emosher was drinking and eating skewers. If others knew, they would probably want to strangle Emosher to death. After eating and drinking, he put the iron skewers and beer bottles into his system backpack. He would find a way to throw them away in the future. He burped and stroked his stomach. He left his room with satisfaction and left the corpse farm. He went to the gym. At this time, everyone had gone to eat, so there was no one in the gym. There was a dynamometer by the window of the gym. The dynamometer was fixed to the ground by 4 screws. The maximum value of the dynamometer was 1,000 kilograms. He had seen the corpse hunters test their strength on it before. Most of them were between 150 and 200 kilograms. He looked out of the window. There was no one nearby. He clenched his right hand into a fist and took a deep breath. He paused for a moment, then punched the target. Bang, there was a loud noise. The dynamometer seemed to have been hit by a flying boulder. It flew backward in an instant. Crash, it directly smashed through the window. After flying for another 30 meters or so toward the training ground, it finally stopped. At this time, the dynamometer had already been twisted into a fried dough twist. Emosher stared at the dynamometer blankly, then at the glass on the ground. Finally, he looked at the 4 screws on the ground that had been torn apart by a huge force. This power seemed to be a little terrifying. The people who were eating in the cafeteria far away heard the commotion and rushed out one by one. Chapter 3. Everyone who was eating in the cafeteria heard the loud noise and rushed out. Emosher saw this and quickly ran away from the window. He looked around and walked to the corner of the gym. He picked up a broom and a dustpan and went to the door. He pretended to come in to clean. He had to come and clean the gym every other day. Today was the day to clean. The people who ran out of the cafeteria saw the strength tester that had been twisted into a fried dough twist and immediately cried out in alarm. What the F***CK, what kind of power is this? What the F***CK, is this Godzilla? The tall man in the lead was the captain of Zone A's body hunters. His face was filled with shock as he looked at the twist-shaped dynamometer. Then he looked at the window of the gym 30 meters away. He shouted to the others, "Let's go check it out." Everyone followed the captain and rushed to the gym. When they arrived at the door, they saw Emosher holding a broom in one hand and a dustpan in the other, standing there in a daze. They all ignored Emosher. They ran straight into the gym. However, there was not even a ghost in the gym. Everyone looked around the gym twice and then a few more times. They still did not find any suspicious person or creature. Finally, the captain turned around and looked at Immortal, who was still standing there in a daze. He asked loudly, "Did you see it?" Immortal shook his head in bewilderment. The captain looked at the broom and dustpan in Immortal's hands. Then he turned around and ignored him. The others also turned around and continued to look for clues in the gym. After carefully inspecting the scene, one of the team members touched the 4-finger-thick screw fracture on the ground. He said in shock, "Captain, the dynamometer's effective range is below 1,000 kilograms. It can withstand up to 1,500 kilograms of force. What is this thing that can blow the dynamometer away and twist it like a fried dough twist? No matter what it is, it can't be human." The captain made his judgment. The others looked at each other. Their captain's strength was only 270 kilograms. The captain looked serious and said to the body hunters, "Sound the alarm and tell everyone to stay in the room. Don't wander around. Body hunters, follow me to find that guy. You must be careful." The team members responded and ran out of the gym. When everyone passed by Immortal, they ignored him again. Only the captain of the corpse hunters shouted at him, "Go back and hide." Immortal seemed to have regained his senses. He hurriedly threw away the broom and dustpan and ran towards the corpse field. She returned to her room and closed the door. "Who?" He let out a long sigh. He laughed bitterly and helplessly. He was afraid of causing a commotion, so he only used 70% of his strength in that punch. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. If others found out that he was the one who caused this, wouldn't they treat him like a monster? Just the thought of catching them and slicing them up for research was terrifying. Of course, they might also think of themselves as heroes. In that case, he would definitely become a member of the corpse hunters. Every day, he would go outside the base to catch zombies. If there was any danger, he had to be at the forefront. That would be troublesome. He was indeed very strong, but no matter how strong he was, would he be able to kill thousands of zombies outside? Therefore, it was better to stay in the base obediently. Anyway, there was the sign-in system. Wouldn't it be better to stay in the base for 8 to 10 years and sign in until he was invincible? The soldiers outside investigated for an entire afternoon, but they didn't find any clues. They could only send a few more patrol teams to strengthen their defenses. At noon the next day, Immortal came to the cafeteria. There was already a group of armed soldiers at the entrance of the cafeteria, vigilantly watching the surroundings. Immortal naturally knew that this was the result of his punch. He shook his head secretly. He entered the cafeteria. A bowl of porridge, a steamed bun, and a small plate of pickled vegetables. This was dinner. In the apocalypse, where resources were scarce, resources were prioritized for the army and the laboratory. Ordinary civilians almost always had this kind of food. After getting the food, he came to the table. A few 15 or 16-year-old children next to him subconsciously moved away from him. Some people even fanned their noses and frowned. "Hey, pig farmers, stay away. You smell like a pig pen, do you want people to eat?" Immortal was too lazy to pay attention to them and focused on eating. Pretentious. Face-slapping. Childish. Compared to their strength now, it was like a boxing champion compared to a 3-year-old child. Should a boxing champion be ridiculed by a 3-year-old child, your golden belt is ugly, and have to be pretentious and face-slapped back. This steamed bun and porridge couldn't be compared to kebabs with beer. It would be great if he could sign a few more kebabs. While Immortal was eating with his head bowed, the discussion of the teenagers beside him could be heard. "Hey, have you all heard? Martial law was suddenly imposed yesterday because a mysterious creature appeared in the gym." "Nonsense, of course I heard. That mysterious creature is terrifyingly powerful. The dynamometer in the gym was directly uprooted and thrown out of the window. I don't know what kind of monster it is. My dad is a member of the body hunters. I went to take a look today. 4 wrist-thick screws were directly torn off. The dynamometer was thrown out of the window more than 70 meters. This strength, tsk. If I had this strength, my dad would have let me join the body hunters. You're insulting that mysterious creature. If you had his strength, don't even mention joining the body hunters. I'm afraid the captain of the body hunters will kneel and beg you to join. Another teenager also laughed, maybe he'll even beg you to be the captain. Saying so, he actually imitated the captain of the body hunters to perfection. The loud voice imitated, on behalf of the 100,000 people in the base, I sincerely invite you to join the body hunters. If you don't join, I'll kneel and never get up. Ha 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 ha, the group of teenagers suddenly roared with laughter. The son of the body hunters raised his chin and proudly said, since you're so sincere in your invitation, then I'll reluctantly accept. That expression, that demeanor. As if he was the one who sent the dynamometer flying with a punch. Mo sure secretly shook his head. These guys are really childish. Would the captain of the body hunters be so humble? But then again, if the captain knew that he was the one who sent the dynamometer flying with a punch, he might very well try his best to invite him to join the body hunters. Being a vice captain shouldn't be a problem. But it's safer to stay in the base. After all, this is the apocalypse. After eating, Mo sure came back from the cafeteria. When he passed by the body hunter's captain's office, he vaguely heard voices inside. Now that his genes have been strengthened dozens of times, not only has his strength increased, his hearing has also greatly improved. He heard the body hunter's loud voice say, "Still haven't found it?" The vice captain's voice was a bit feminine. He answered, "Not yet." "Captain, what kind of monster do you think it is, to have such great strength? To be able to tear the screws and twist the dynamometer into a fried dough twist?" The body hunter's loud voice said, "Who knows, just be careful for the next few days." After saying that, he sighed again. The vice captain's voice was a bit feminine as he asked, "Captain, what's wrong?" The captain said, "I'm just thinking, if that kind of great strength was used on our team members, then when we go out to hunt corpses, wouldn't it be easy?" Hearing that, the vice captain was also interested. He said with a bit of femininity, "Captain, I thought that young people like to fantasize. I didn't expect that you, the captain of the body hunters, also like to fantasize. But Captain, you're right, if we have that kind of power, where can't we go outside the base? Why do we have to stay in this base all day?" The captain's loud voice came, "I'm not thinking that much, I'm just thinking, if we have that kind of great strength, the success rate of hunting corpses will greatly increase, and the casualty rate will be greatly reduced. We can even achieve 0 casualties. And I also have a selfish motive. My son is guarding the first line of defense. That's the most dangerous place, and the casualty rate is the highest. If he can get that kind of power," at the end of his words, the captain smiled bitterly, "Unfortunately, we don't know what kind of creature it is." Hearing this, Mo sure just smiled and shook his head. Then, he leisurely strolled towards the corpse farm. In the next few days, Mo sure still signed in every day. His strength was still increasing. Now, the crowbar in his hand was like a rubber band. He could pull it however he wanted, and pinch it however he wanted. At the same time, the news in the entire base had been very tense. Everyone spread the news that a mysterious creature suddenly appeared in the base. A large number of body hunters and city guards began to appear in the vicinity. They were looking for the mysterious creature. However, 10 days passed, and there were no clues. Mo sure, as the person closest to the scene of the incident, was naturally called in many times for questioning. But Mo sure only had one answer: "As soon as I reached the door, I heard a loud noise inside. I was so scared that my legs went soft." Other than that, he didn't know anything. Those who asked eventually waved their hands impatiently, "Go, go, go, go raise your pigs." Mo sure nodded as if relieved of a heavy burden. Oh. In the end, this matter became the most mysterious incident in the entire base. It also became a hot topic in people's leisure time. No matter where Mo sure went, he could hear people talking. How strong was that mysterious creature? How strong was it? In order not to appear too different, Emosher often leaned in to listen to these discussions when he heard them. Several colleagues in the body farm would talk about it almost every day. At this time, two colleagues were in the middle of a heated conversation. Seeing Emosher walk over, a colleague said, "Emosher, who do you think has the strongest combat power in the entire base?" Emosher said, "Needless to say, it must be the body hunter captain. He used to be a special forces soldier." The colleague shook his head, "I'm afraid you haven't heard of the mysterious creature in the gym. The body hunter captain is very strong, but his punch only weighs more than 200 kilograms. What about the mysterious creature?" Speaking of this, the colleague said with an exaggerated expression, "It directly twisted the dynamometer into a fried dough twist. Don't you think it's awesome? It's crazy." When Emosher heard someone praise him, he felt a little happy in his heart. He said modestly, "It's okay." The colleague rolled his eyes at Emosher. "What do you mean by okay? Your standards are too high, aren't they?" The other colleague curled his lips and said, "If this is okay, then tell me, what do you mean by strong?" Emosher thought seriously and said, "Does playing with a crowbar like a rubber band count?" The two of them glared at him. Go play somewhere else. We can't talk about the same thing as you. We're not on the same channel at all." Emosher nodded, "Oh." He turned and left. He sighed in his heart, the moral degeneration of the world is really not what it used to be. No one would believe him if he told the truth. Chapter 4. When the mysterious creature incident gradually faded away, life returned to normal. Feeding pigs and zombies every day. Cleaning the gym every other day. When sleeping at night, he would often dream of the Titan dragon. Emosher was very satisfied with such a life. In the apocalypse, he could sleep well at night and eat well during the day. Occasionally, he could drink beer and eat skewers. He would often have sweet dreams. What could be more pleasant than this? Of course, he still insisted on signing in every day. He had already signed into many of the more important places in the base. Signing in at the training ground, he received various combat skills. Now, in terms of combat skills, there was probably no one in the base who could match him. Signing in at the sentry tower, he received Lookout Eye. It allowed him to see further and clearer when he was on the lookout. Signing in next to the base's ammunition warehouse, he received Firearms Encyclopedia. After learning this skill, his understanding of firearms had reached its peak. The performance, structure, range, accuracy, bullet speed, power, and so on of any firearm, there was nothing he didn't know. Signing in next to the shooting training ground, he received Gun King skill. After learning this skill, his marksmanship was not inferior to any sniper. Of course, the surroundings of the laboratory were the places he signed in the most. Most of the things he signed in were gene enhancers. But occasionally, there were other things. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory, sign in reward, Virus X sensor injection, he checked in the system backpack. Virus X sensor injection, after injection, you can sense the Virus X within a radius of 100 meters. After injecting this Virus X sensor injection. Even from his room, Emosher could sense the zombies in the zombies' room. At the door of the laboratory, he could sense the Virus X samples in the laboratory's cold storage. This made Emosher, who had always been cautious, very happy. With this ability, he knew where the virus was and where it wasn't. In case he went outside the base in the future, he could avoid the zombies in advance. Of course, the thing he got the most from signing in at the laboratory was still the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. But as his strength became stronger and stronger, his speed became faster and faster. The effect of the Titan Dragon gene enhancer was also getting weaker and weaker. It seemed that his body was about to be strengthened to the limit. He was always looking forward to unlocking the dragon claw on his left arm when his body was strengthened to the limit. At the same time, the number of times he received the brain cell enhancer had also increased. Now that 2 years had passed, he had been injected with the brain cell enhancer more than 50 times. The effect was very obvious. Now, his brainwaves were much stronger. It could easily sense any movement within a radius of 100 meters. Moreover, what excited him the most was that after his brain cells were strengthened to a certain extent, he could actually use his brainwaves to control things. In other words, telekinesis. Mo Shi called this psychokinesis. The first thing he did after realizing that he could move objects through space was a little childish. Using telekinesis to feed himself. Zhang Xian opened his mouth and willed. The skewer automatically entered his mouth. The metal skewer was automatically drawn. The second thing he did was to use his telekinesis to dress her. He stretched out his hands. With a thought, the clothes floated into the air. He tried to wrap it around his body. But the clothes were too soft. Moreover, if he wanted to put it on, he had to use his telekinesis to control every part of the clothes. Straighten the sleeves, lift up the neckline. The clothes were stretched open. Multitasking. The difficulty increased exponentially. The clothes were either put on his head or wrapped around his waist. But after more than 10 days of repeated practice, he could skillfully use his telekinesis to wear clothes. Until now, it could be said that he had truly achieved one sentence, stretching out his hand for clothes and opening his mouth for food. Gradually, as he injected more and more brainwave enhancers, his telekinesis also became stronger and stronger. In the beginning, he could only use his telekinesis to move paper within a meter. And as time passed, after he injected the 53rd brain cell enhancer, he could already use his telekinesis to control anything within 100 meters that was less than 10 kilograms. This made Mo Shi extremely excited. While others were still struggling to survive, he had already entered a well-off society. Today was the 800th day since Mo Shi transmigrated. When he woke up early in the morning, he strolled to the entrance of the laboratory. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." This had long become his habit. The system's voice sounded frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer X1. Back at his residence. As usual, he injected the gene enhancer into his body. But this time, after the injection, his body didn't feel as hot as before. After waiting for a full 10 minutes, his body didn't change at all. Mo Shi knew that his body should have been strengthened to the limit. This made him a little excited. Should he unlock the dragon claw on his left arm? However, reality gave him a slap in the face. He didn't unlock the dragon claw on his left arm. He couldn't help but ask in his mind, "System, why didn't you unlock the dragon claw on my left arm?" The system replied instantly, frowny face, "Only by breaking through the limit can you unlock the dragon claw on your left arm." Mo Shi asked again, "How do I break through?" The system replied instantly, frowny face, "When the time comes, the host will naturally know." Mo Shi curled his lips, "Is there any difference between that and not saying anything?" The system was silent. Mo Shi could only shake his head. His system rarely spoke. As long as it was silent, it would be difficult to ask anything in a short period of time. However, he believed that with the sign-in system, this limit would be broken sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. Just as he was looking forward to it, an ear-piercing alarm suddenly sounded. D, 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 the alarm obviously came from the laboratory more than 200 meters away. At the same time, a broadcast sounded, "Alarm, all personnel stay in the room and close the doors and windows. No one is allowed to go out before the alarm is lifted. Alarm, all personnel stay in the room and close the doors and windows. No one is allowed to go out before the alarm is lifted." Mo Shi thought for a moment. The alarm in the laboratory had sounded several times before. Most of them were accidentally infected by the virus. However, there were no major problems. Those who were infected would be caught quickly. And in order to prevent accidents from happening, a team of corpses lived not far from the laboratory. There was also an army of 100 people stationed there. So he didn't need to worry about it. Since the alarm didn't allow him to go out casually, he was happy to be free. At the same time, the laboratory was already in a mess. Those researchers screamed and rushed out of the laboratory. Behind them. Boom, the wall of the laboratory was directly smashed through. A zombie jumped out of the hole in the wall that was smashed through. This was obviously not an ordinary zombie. It was more than 3 meters tall. Its body was strong, and its muscles bulged like a hill. And it was extremely fast, 5 meters in one step. After catching up with a researcher, it stretched out its right hand. In the next moment, the right hand actually made a cracking sound and quickly deformed. 5 fingers quickly elongated. It turned into a sharp claw more than a foot long. Then the claw pierced into the back of the researcher's heart. Ah! The researcher opened his mouth and screamed, struggling desperately. The army stationed here had already rushed over. When they saw the 3-meter-tall mutant zombie, they were all horrified. When the mutated zombie saw so many living people, it was like a hungry wolf seeing a flock of sheep. It roared excitedly to the sky. Roar, then it threw away the researcher in its hand and ran towards these soldiers. Its speed was extremely fast, almost reaching 20 meters per second. Da-da-da, da-da-da, the rifles in the hands of these soldiers spat out tongues of fire. They hit the mutated zombie. The mutated zombie's chest was instantly mangled. But soon, the mutated zombie roared. Its skin was actually changing rapidly. Pieces of palm-sized plate armor began to grow. This plate armor quickly covered its body and limbs. The bullets hit the mutated zombie's chest, but a series of sparks appeared. And made the sound of metal clashing. Ding ding ding, ding ding ding, when these more than 100 soldiers saw this, they were all shocked. He hurriedly shouted, "Rocket!" The soldier carrying the rocket launcher hurriedly took 2 steps forward. Whoosh, the rocket dragged a long tail flame and blasted the mutated zombie's body. Boom, flames shot in all directions, smoke rose. Half of the mutated zombie's shoulder was blown off. However, in the next moment, the flesh and blood in the gap of its shoulder quickly squirmed. In just more than 10 seconds, it was directly restored. Seeing this, the soldiers present all widened their eyes one by one. Not only did the rocket not kill it, but it also angered it. It looked up to the sky and roared, roar, then with a step, it sped up and ran towards these soldiers. The captain hurriedly shouted, "Hide!" All the soldiers scattered and hid behind the bunker. However, the mutated zombie was extremely strong, and it seemed that no bunker could stop it. Its right arm turned into a huge horny fist with a diameter of half a meter. It punched through the wall. The soldiers hiding behind the wall even had their heads blown off. Its left arm turned into a tentacle more than 10 meters long. It directly pierced into a soldier's body. Then the tentacle instantly split like a flower. The soldier was torn into several pieces. Flesh and blood splattered, it was a tragic sight. When the captain of these soldiers saw this, he hurriedly shouted with a walkie-talkie, "The laboratory is requesting support, quickly." While speaking, his captain's abdomen had been scratched by the mutated zombie's sharp claws. Then, the mutated zombie began to kill. In just 2 minutes, more than 100 soldiers at the scene were killed by it. It was completely unstoppable. And even if people were not dead, as long as they were touched by its sharp claws, tentacles, or sharp teeth, they would be turned into zombies in a short period of time. These zombie soldiers, one by one, got up from the ground. With a beast-like roar in their throats, they rushed towards the uninjured people. For a time, these 100 soldiers were completely wiped out. The scene was a mess, broken limbs and broken bodies were everywhere. At this time, the corpse hunting team that went out to perform the task finally rushed back. However, when they saw the mutated zombie and the dozens of zombie soldiers, they all looked extremely dignified. This was the hinterland of the base, where a large number of civilians lived. The armed forces were near the base wall, and it would take at least 20 minutes to rush over. How many people could these zombies infect in 20 minutes? They didn't even dare to think about it. The captain barely calmed down and roared, "Others, follow me to kill the ordinary zombies. Sniper, I'll leave the mutated zombie to you." Before the voice faded, bang, there was a loud noise. The mutated zombie's face was suddenly badly mutilated. However, this mutated zombie did not fall. Instead, it glanced in the direction of the bullet. With a roar, it turned around and drilled into the green belt next to it. On the roof in the distance, the sniper's heart was extremely horrified and said, "What kind of monster is this?" You know, his gun was an anti-material sniper rifle. The larger the caliber, the more powerful it was. Generally, when it hit a zombie, the zombie would be directly blown into two pieces. If it hit the head, the upper body would be blown into meat paste. But this mutated zombie, when it was shot in the head, only its face was blown up. Its movement was not affected at all. And from the scope, he clearly saw that the wound on the zombie's face was healing quickly. At this time, the captain saw the escape route of the mutated zombie, and suddenly his face changed. "It's going to the zombie farm." Chapter 5. It went to the corpse farm. The captain of the corpse hunters roared. All the team members heard this and their faces suddenly changed. The corpse farm was not the main point. The main point was, next to the corpse farm was the school field. Although there were not many students in the school in the apocalypse. But there were still more than 100. The most terrifying thing was, next to the school, there was a hospital, 2 factories, and a residential area. In total, there were more than 5,000 people. Not sure if those guys had a problem with their brains when choosing the location of the laboratory. They actually chose such a place. In fact, the person who chose the location was not to blame. The apocalypse came, and the living space of human beings was sharply compressed. Many times, it was not considered so carefully. Even if it was considered, the conditions may not necessarily allow it. At this time, the captain saw that the mutated zombie had already jumped over the wall of the corpse farm. His eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was almost hoarse. He shouted loudly, "You 3, take care of the zombies here. The others, follow me to chase the mutated zombie. Snipers, if you have a chance, shoot at the mutated zombie." With that, he led 15 team members and madly chased towards the corpse farm. However, the more he chased, the more his heart sank. With the strength of the mutated zombie, even if they caught up, they would not be able to stop it. At this time in the corpse farm, Embark was tasting the fragrant tea that he got from signing in this morning. In the apocalypse, no one planted tea anymore. Now, to be able to drink a mouthful of hot tea was simply a great enjoyment. Embark took a sip of tea and smacked his lips in satisfaction. But at this time, his Virus X sensing ability was suddenly triggered. He sensed that a Virus X carrier appeared in the corpse farm. This was not a good thing. He put the teacup into the system backpack. He opened the door. He saw that in the courtyard of the corpse farm, a guy more than 3 meters tall had just jumped in. The right hand was a claw. The left hand was a tentacle. The body also had a tortoiseshell-like plate armor. He could not help but be stunned. What the hell was this? Those guys in the laboratory were always doing this and that. They did not make antibodies, but made such a monster. Messing around. Next to the corpse farm was the school. There were also hospitals, factories, and residential areas around. If those people were infected, his comfortable days would be over. It seemed like he had no choice but to make a move today. At the same time, several hundred meters away from the corpse farm, the captain watched as the colossal zombie jumped over the wall of the zombie farm. His heart was filled with despair. The mutated zombie was obviously running towards the school. The captain's eyes were bloodshot. The veins on his temples bulged. As he chased forward like a madman, he roared in a hoarse voice. "Snipers, open fire, F*King open fire." If there was still a glimmer of hope to stop the colossal zombie now, it would be impossible. In that case, they could only rely on the sniper to attract the monster's attention. However, the sniper on the roof sounded even more desperate. "Captain, it's too fast, and we can't see anything, no vision." These 4 words were like a bolt from the blue, exploding on the heads of all the members. Their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. It was over. If the school was infected, the nearby hospitals and residential areas would soon be infected as well. The entire armed forces of the base were on the periphery. Who would have thought that the center of the base would suddenly explode? The entire base was finished. At the same time, the mutated zombie's target was the school. It had a keen sense of hearing and smell. It could hear a large number of human voices in the school next to the zombie farm. It could smell a large amount of human scent there. This made it very excited. Its eyes were blood red. It was only 100 meters away from the school's wall. Suddenly, a white figure appeared. It blocked in front of the mutated zombie. This white figure was wearing a white t-shirt. In this cold winter, he only wore a t-shirt and stood in the yard. It could be seen that this person was different. This person was Immortal. His body had been strengthened to the limit, and his cold resistance had long been far beyond that of ordinary people. He could play in the snow in a tank top and shorts for 3 or 9 days and not feel cold at all. Of course, he had never done so. He stood in front of the 3-meter-tall mutated zombie and seemed a little small. When the mutated zombie saw a living person, it was even more excited that its eyes were blood red. Roar! It let out a beast-like roar from its throat. It strode towards Immortal. 1 step, 20 meters. When it arrived in front of Immortal, it swung its 1-foot-long right claw. It stabbed straight towards Immortal's face. Immortal said in his heart that when you hit someone, don't hit their face. This mutated zombie didn't care about martial ethics. Then his body gently moved to one side, avoiding the stab. At the same time, he lifted his right foot lightly. It imprinted on the mutated zombie's abdomen plate armor. Bang! The mutated zombie suddenly flew up. At an extremely fast speed, it flew more than 10 meters to the side. Rumble! It crashed into the pig shed. It crashed into the wall, creating a large gap with a diameter of 5 meters. It fell far away outside the zombie farm. When the pig shed collapsed, the dozens of pigs in the pig shed became excited. They all snorted and fled outside. Immortal's face suddenly changed. Oh no. Losing a pig would cause him to be scolded. This time, more than a dozen ran out at once. He would probably be scolded by the leader. The sniper on the distant roof saw the mutated zombie as if it was hit by a train. It crashed through the wall and flew more than 20 meters. Looking carefully, the mutated zombie's chest plate armor was shattered into several pieces. He couldn't help but be stunned. What was so strong? He quickly turned the muzzle and looked inside the zombie farm. It just happened that a row of trees blocked his line of sight, so he still couldn't see. But such a strong force still made his mind flash a thought. Could it be that a year ago, the strong creature that blew away the dynamometer appeared again? At this time, after the mutated zombie was blown away. The plate armor on its chest was shattered into several pieces. But the zombie didn't feel pain at all. Moreover, Immortal's kick had stimulated its ferocious nature. It roared to the sky. The sound shook a radius of thousands of meters. In the roar, its body changed again. The flesh on its back split from both sides. A pair of claws stretched out from it, tearing this flesh. A new body crawled out from the crack. This new body had no skin. The muscles were directly exposed. The surface of the muscles was all sticky blood-red liquid. Soon, this new body grew rapidly. In just more than 10 seconds, it grew to more than 5 meters long and nearly 3 meters tall. The limbs became like the claws of a beast. The back grew like a stegosaurus. A 3-meter-long, thick, barbed tail grew from its tail. Its entire body looked like a 5-meter-long, skinless beast. Only that huge head still had some remnants of the shape of a human. A-oh, roar, when it roared to the sky, the sharp teeth in its mouth were clearly visible. The bloody red tongue more than a meter long was terrifying. The saliva on the side of its mouth shone brightly under the sun. The sniper saw this scene from the scope and couldn't help but change his expression. What the hell is this monster? The zombie hunters also saw this scene from afar. They also exclaimed one after another. F***CK. What the hell? Sniper, kill it. There was a trace of horror in the captain's voice. After all, the zombie hunters dealt with zombies all day long and saw a lot of zombies. But those were just ordinary zombies. They had never seen such a monster. The sniper received the order and responded. Yes. Then he aimed at the head of the zombie after the second mutation and pulled the trigger. Bang, there was a loud sound. The bullet flew for more than 300 meters and hit the target. However, this time, it only left a small hole in its head. And this small hole had already recovered in a few seconds. The mutated zombie ignored the sniper. Its target was the human in the courtyard. It opened its 4 claws and jumped. It was more than 30 meters. It ran towards the courtyard at top speed. Everyone saw the zombie after the second mutation run towards the school again. In their hearts, the despair once again overwhelmed them. In the courtyard of the zombie farm, M.O. Sure looked at the 5-meter-long monster. He was also slightly surprised. Is it a second mutation? Then he moved his mind. A knife appeared in his hand. This knife was 1.2 meters long. There was a trace of quenched blue in the black. The blade looked like one. But if one looked carefully, they would find that it was composed of many components. It was very technological. The entire knife was made of metal. But under the sun, it didn't reflect light. This was the reward Emosure received for signing in, Bloodthirsty Zombie Slayer. Chapter 6. At this time, the zombie after the second mutation was like a huge rhinoceros. It had already crashed through the courtyard wall and rushed into the yard. It rushed straight at Emosure. A bright light flashed across Emosure's clear eyes. When the mutated zombie was 50 meters away from him, he suddenly exploded. 1 step. 50 meters. His whole body was like a white shadow. He instantly rose into the air. The bloodthirsty zombie executioner in his hand brazenly slashed down. Under the sun. The 1.2-meter-long zombie executioner drew a large fan-shaped afterimage. It instantly sank into the head of the mutated zombie. Whoosh, there was a soft sound. Emosure landed on the ground and slowly withdrew his blade. The mutated zombie fell to the ground with a bang. Moreover, it fell directly into 2 halves. One slash actually split a 5-meter-long, nearly 3-meter-tall mutated zombie into 2 halves. Emosure couldn't help but think of a famous saying, the power of 1 slash was so terrifying. And a large amount of strong acid was corroding the mutated zombie's body. Blood-red foam was constantly coming out. A faint green smoke rose. A stench suddenly filled the air. After the second mutation, this zombie originally had an extremely strong self-healing ability. Its wound was constantly wriggling, trying to heal itself. However, its self-healing speed was so weak in front of the strong acid. In just over 10 seconds, more than half of its head was corroded. At this point, its self-healing speed finally slowed down. After a few seconds, when its head was completely corroded, it finally lost its self-healing ability. It was completely declared dead. Emosure slowly shook his head. I didn't even use my strength and you fell. He originally thought that if he couldn't kill this mutated zombie with one slash, he would try using the Titan Dragon Claw. However, before he could show the Titan Dragon Claw, this guy was actually killed in one hit. Sigh, the sorrow of being invincible. He looked down at the bloodthirsty zombie executioner in his hand. There was not a drop of blood on the black blade. This blade was definitely the nemesis of zombies. At this time, he heard the messy footsteps outside the wall. He quickly put the blade back into the system space. His feet touched the ground. After a few ups and downs, he jumped over the wall. From the system backpack, he took out a coat and put it on. At the same time, the zombie hunters had already rushed into the zombie farm. In their hearts, one was more desperate than the other. They knew that the entire base was probably finished. Today was the real end for all of them. Although their legs were still moving forward, their hearts were already cold. However, when they ran into the yard of the zombie farm, they were all stunned at the same time. The disappointment in their eyes gradually turned into surprise. The yard was filled with a stench. In the middle of the courtyard, a huge corpse was lying there quietly. It seemed to be the corpse of a zombie that had gone through the second mutation. Dead? What's going on? How did it suddenly die? Everyone's eyes were wide open. You look at me, I look at you. They had seen the double-mutated zombie rushing towards the zombie farm. Then, in less than 30 seconds, they followed in. They didn't expect to see this scene soon, their surprise turned into joy. The mutated zombie was dead, but the school was saved. That was the end of the base's death. How could they not be pleasantly surprised? The was also greatly. But the school was fine, which made him sigh in relief. The loud voice roared, "Alert!" Immediately, more than a dozen team members were on guard with guns. The captain led the rest of the team members to carefully approach the corpse of the mutated zombie. They didn't see it clearly until they got closer. The corpse had been split in half from head to tail by something. And the two halves of the corpse seemed to have been corroded by something. Blood was still bubbling on it. All the team members were very confused. One must know that this mutated zombie wasn't even afraid of rockets and Barrett. But now, it was killed by something in just a few seconds. How could they not be excited? But in addition to the excitement, they were all puzzled. What on earth was it that could kill such a powerful mutated zombie? The captain took a look at his surroundings and loudly ordered, "Everyone, get ready. Search carefully, be careful." The team members immediately nodded. Shocked, they searched around. The zombie farm was not big, so they finished searching quickly. "Captain, we didn't find anything." The captain narrowed his eyes. "Let's find those 3 corpse rearers and ask them." A team member said, "I've already looked. The 3 of them are not here. At this time, they may have gone to clean up everywhere." The captain said loudly, "Sniper, what did you find over there?" The sniper replied, "I don't have a view of the zombie farm here." The captain immediately shouted, "Expand the search area to a diameter of 1 kilometer." The team members responded and searched outside the zombie farm. The sniper also looked around. But after a while, he still found nothing. 10 minutes later, the supporting army and other zombie hunters also arrived. They were also shocked when they saw the 2 halves of the huge corpse. Who did it? Then they expanded the search area to the whole area A. Nothing was found. They reported this matter to the head of the base. So the head of the base ordered to expand the search area to the whole base. However, after 2 days of searching, there was still no clue. This became another mysterious incident. At the same time, people in Area A could not help but associate this with the mysterious incident a year ago. In the meeting room of the zombie hunters, the captain and 20 zombie hunters were having a meeting. The captain said loudly, "Tell me, what do you all think?" The vice captain, who was a little sissy, said, "Captain, I think this incident should be related to the mysterious incident a year ago." A team member nodded, "Indeed. A year ago, a mysterious creature appeared and blasted the dynamometer away. At that time, we searched for 10 days, but there was no result. The incident this time is exactly the same as the previous one. Another team member said, and this time, the creature seems to be more powerful. Everyone should have seen that when the mutated zombie entered the zombie farm, it was blasted out almost instantly. It also crashed through the wall and flew more than 20 meters. After that, the mutated zombie mutated twice. It should have been more powerful. But it was killed in an instant. The team members nodded. It is indeed more powerful than the last time. Someone felt uneasy and said, there is such a powerful mysterious creature around us, and it comes and goes without a trace. It is very unsettling. I don't know if this mysterious creature is good or bad, friend or foe. Another team member retorted, at least it killed the mutated zombie yesterday and saved the whole base. Hearing this, the captain nodded slowly. It hid in the base for a year and did not do anything evil. And now it saved the whole base from danger. It seems that this mysterious creature is not malicious. It just doesn't want to be found. The vice captain, who was a little sissy, said, Captain, if it doesn't want us to find it, then should we stop searching? Otherwise, if we anger it, I am afraid the consequences are not something we can bear. The captain pondered for a moment. He nodded, I will report everyone's thoughts to the head of the base and see what they decide. Chapter 7. The captain reported the thoughts of the team members to the head of the base. In the end, the head's reply was, stop searching on the surface, but secretly send people to investigate. The captain had to obey the order. On the third day, all the team and army returned to their posts. Everything in the base seemed to have returned to normal. However, the reappearance of the mysterious creature and the instant killing of the mutated zombie quickly spread in Area A and even the entire base. Emosher and his two colleagues, crippled Old Lee and cross-eyed Xiao Dou, didn't return to the zombie farm until now. As a result, they were reprimanded by the zombie farm leader. You three can't even raise pigs properly. What else can you do? Crippled Old Lee and cross-eyed Xiao Dou both felt wronged, but they didn't dare to say a word. This was definitely a natural disaster. What could they do? Emosher could only smile bitterly in his heart. He just wanted to test his strength at that time. He didn't think so much. He didn't expect that with one kick, the pig shed collapsed and the wall was broken. If he had known, he would have been gentler. The leader continued to reprimand, the three of you are not nimble and have no strength. That's why you were arranged to raise pigs and zombies. I didn't expect that you could even raise a pig and lose it. Fortunately, it was a pig that was lost. If it was a zombie, the three of you would have made a big mistake. As he spoke, he saw the wronged expression on the faces of the two zombie farmers. He shook his head and his anger subsided a little. He said, I know you feel wronged. You don't want to raise pigs and zombies. But tell me, with your ability, what else can you do? If you guys were like that mysterious creature, and could kill the mutant zombies, then you guys would have been the captain of the zombie hunters. Not to mention a captain, maybe the head of the base would be yours. Crippled Old Lee and cross-eyed Xiao Dou could only bow their heads and say nothing. It was true that they were useless. But there was no need to be so blunt. It was too hurtful. Emosher also lowered his head. He felt a little ashamed and said, Leader, you flatter me too much. I'm not cut out to be the head. Hearing this, the leader's anger that had just been suppressed rose again. I say, Emosher, oh Emosher, you want to be a blow-up doll just because I gave you a balloon, right? Don't you have any idea how capable you are? Do you really think you are that mysterious creature? If you do, I'll kowtow to you right now. Emosher felt even more embarrassed. He waved his hand repeatedly and said, Leader, how can I do that? Scram! The leader was instantly infuriated. He wished he could slap this brat to death. This kid was usually a little silly. Who would have thought that at such a crucial moment, he would be so infuriated? Old Lee and Lil Do wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to show it on their faces. The leaders also felt that they had lost face. Glaring at the two men, he roared, "I'll give you 3 nights to catch all the pigs. If there's one less, I'll feed you to the zombies." The 2 men hurriedly left the leader's office. Outside the house, she found Immortal. Little Bean complained. "Is there something wrong with your head? You dare to take advantage of your leader?" Old Lee also shook his head and sighed. "The leader is angry, and you're adding fuel to the fire." Immortal chuckled and said, "That's right. This is a natural disaster, what does it have to do with the 3 of us? He scolded us as if we were his grandsons. I just wanted to vent for everyone." The 2 men shook their heads. "Thank you for your kindness, but we appreciate it. Don't be stupid in the future. If we really angered the leader and kicked us out of the zombie farm, we'll probably starve to death. The base doesn't keep idle people." What could Immortal say? He could only shrug his shoulders and say, "Okay." But in his heart, he sighed, "I'm just telling the truth. Is honesty not allowed in the apocalypse?" When Immortal and the other 2 went to catch the pigs, discussions about the mysterious creature could be heard everywhere. At the school next to the zombie farm, Immortal and his 2 colleagues were chasing and intercepting 2 pigs on the sports field. The 3 of them were sweating profusely. In this cold winter, steam was rising from the heads of the 3 of them. On the 2nd floor of the teaching building, several teachers looked at the 3 people and 2 pigs on the playground. They all thought it was funny. A teacher laughed and said, "The mutated zombie 2 days ago crashed into the pig shed of the zombie farm and broke through the wall. The pigs inside all ran out. Fortunately, it was the pigs that ran out. If it was a zombie, it would be over." Another teacher said, "Teacher Zhang, what happened 2 days ago was very dangerous, have you heard?" "Of course, I heard that the mutated zombie almost came to the school. If it wasn't for the mysterious creature that suddenly appeared, I'm afraid we would be zombies now. Not only us, if the school was infected, the entire base would be finished." Speaking of this, several people showed a look of fear. If that's the case, it's all thanks to that mysterious creature. At this time, a female teacher wearing bottle-bottomed glasses hesitated for a moment and stopped. One of the teachers noticed this and asked, "What's the matter?" "Teacher Wang, what's wrong? Look at you, you're in a daze. Are you scared by the mysterious creature in your dream?" Another teacher joked. The female teacher with glasses gathered her courage and said, "It wasn't a dream, I really saw it." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. Teacher Wang's class was on the 3rd floor. And when the incident happened 2 days ago, she was in class. Speaking of which, she could see the incident through the window on the classroom door. Thinking of this, several teachers were excited. "Teacher Wang, tell us, what was that mysterious creature like?" The female teacher shook her head. "That is not a mysterious creature, it should be a human." "A human? How is that possible?" "Teacher Wang, you must have seen wrongly." Those teachers expressed their disbelief. No wonder they didn't believe it. How could a human be so strong? Their doubts aroused the female teacher's stubbornness. She pushed her bottle-bottomed glasses and said firmly, "That was indeed a human." Hearing this, the teachers were all stunned. They all knew that Teacher Wang was an honest person. They had never seen her joke. Nor had they seen her lie. Could it be that it was really a human? Thinking of this, the teachers suddenly burst into an uproar. "Teacher Wang, are you sure you didn't see wrongly? Tell us, what did that human look like? Was it a man or a woman?" The female teacher thought carefully for a moment and shook her head again. "It was too far away, and I'm short-sighted. I only saw a blurry figure." Everyone looked at each other. Seeing that Teacher Wang was so determined, they believed her even more. But how could a human have such strong strength? How could they have such strong combat power? A moment later, a male teacher pointed at the 3 zombie rearers who were catching pigs on the field. He asked tentatively, Teacher Wang, do you think it was them? Hearing this, the other teachers roared with laughter. In the base, besides the old people, zombie rearers were the most useless. It was more convincing to say that it was done by the school children than zombie rearers. Teacher Wang carefully looked at the 3 people on the field. After a moment, she shook her head. She said, I don't know. One of the teachers felt that it wasn't good to talk about people behind their backs. Alright, stop talking. It won't be good if they hear it. Another teacher laughed and said, What are you afraid of? They are almost 200 meters away. Are you afraid that they can hear us? The other teachers also laughed. But they didn't say anything else. On the field, Mo raised his head and intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the teachers in the aisle of the teaching building. His genes had been strengthened to the limit, and he really heard it. He thought to himself that it was a close call. It seemed that he had to be more careful in the future. Chapter 8. The news that the mysterious creature mentioned by the female teacher was a human quickly spread. Now, almost the entire base knew about it. Most people scoffed at it. How could a human be so powerful? But a small number of people believed it. The head of the base also called the female teacher over and talked to her several times. But other than seeing a blurry figure, she couldn't say anything valuable. The head of the base could only give up. Next to the warehouse not far from the zombie farm, Mo said in his mind, System, sign in. This was the first time he had signed in at a warehouse in 2 years. He didn't think the warehouse was an important place. Signing in here probably wouldn't give him anything good. He would waste a sign-in opportunity. He just happened to pass by here today and wanted to give it a try. If he couldn't get anything good, he wouldn't come here in the future. Sign-in successful. Sign-in location, warehouse. Sign-in reward, 1 personal warehouse. Personal warehouse. Mo was puzzled. He checked the system backpack in his mind. There were a total of 100 slots in the system backpack. Each slot could only hold 1 item. Now that he had put in some clothes, food, water, and more than 50 bottles of recovery potions, there were only 10 slots left. In the 88th slot, there was a small warehouse that was the same shape as the warehouse. He focused on the warehouse, and a row of words appeared on it. Personal warehouse, can store 1,000 items. Can only be opened near the warehouse. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Mo's face. He had a headache before because the system backpack only had 100 slots, which wasn't enough. He didn't expect to get a personal warehouse just like that. The capacity was 10 times that of the system backpack. Although the setting, can only be opened near the warehouse, was a pain in the ass. But the warehouse was only 500 meters away from the zombie farm, so it was very convenient for him to come here. With a thought in his mind, he stored the drumsticks, ham, skewers, and other food he had saved over the past 2 years into his personal warehouse. The personal warehouse was the same as the system backpack, and food wouldn't go bad. The skewers were hot when they were put in, and no matter how long they were taken out, they would still be hot. They tasted exactly the same as when they were freshly baked. Next, he stored more than 20 bottles of water and more than 50 bottles of recovery potions that he got from signing in. As a result, his backpack was almost emptied. Now that he had a personal storage unit, he could store more food and water. This way, if they were to leave the base in the future, at least they wouldn't have to worry about food and water. After signing in, he was about to leave. Not far away, a few middle-aged men were using forklifts to pull a few boxes over. They discussed as they walked. Old Fong, that mysterious creature is actually a human. Do you believe it? I think it's possible. If he wasn't a human, how could he have hidden in the base for a year without being discovered? I didn't believe it in the past, but now that I think about it, it's because everyone thought that he couldn't be human, that he could hide for more than a year without being found. No matter what, he saved the lives of 100,000 people in our base. You're exaggerating. At the very least, he saved more than 5,000 people in Area A. As they spoke, they saw Mosher standing in front of the warehouse. Old Fong joked. Shalamo, don't tell me that the powerhouse who saved more than 10,000 people in Area A is you? Old Fong was one of the few people who often joked with Mosher about the warehouse. The two had a good relationship. Mosher puffed out his chest, raised his head, and put his hands behind his back. He had the demeanor of a master. He asked. What? Don't I look like one? Ha 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 ha, Old Fong and the others were amused and laughed. You brat, you're so arrogant. I think the catchphrase of your zombie farm leader is right, give you a balloon and you can be a blow-up doll. Ha 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 ha, the crowd roared with laughter again. Mosher said with a deadpan expression. In this doomsday, blow-up dolls are also rare. Everyone laughed again. The people in the warehouse didn't discriminate against zombie farmers. So when he was with them, Mosher was more relaxed. The next day, Mosher went to the warehouse to sign in again. The results showed. Sign-in failed. Mosher could only shake his head with a wry smile. Some places could sign in repeatedly. And some places could only sign in once. Since the mutated zombie incident, Mosher had become more cautious. Every day, apart from his daily work, he would sign in silently. The laboratory was still the place where he signed in the most. Most of the rewards he received were Titan Dragon gene enhancers. But now, his strength had increased to the limit. It was no longer effective to inject this enhancer. So he stored all these enhancers in his personal warehouse. Maybe they would be useful in the future. In addition to the Titan Dragon gene enhancer, what he received the most was the brain cell enhancer. Through the injection of the brain cell enhancer, his psychic power was constantly increasing. The range of his psychic power was also constantly expanding. Spring passed and autumn came. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. This was already the 5th year he had signed in. For 5 years, he had signed in every day. Never stopped. There were more and more items signed in. Even more than half of his personal storage had been filled. There were more than 500 bottles of water and more than 200 bottles of recovery medicine. There was also enough food for him to eat for a month. Now, through the continuous injection of brain cell enhancers, the range of his psychic power had already reached a radius of 300 meters. Within 300 meters, he could control anything under 30 kilograms. At night, the wind was strong. Mosher sat on the bed. But his psychic power was controlling a tree 300 meters away from the zombie breeding field. With a move of his psychic power, the 2 branches on the tree began to attack and block like a fencing player's sword. Controlling the branches to fight each other was the main method he used to practice his psychic power control. Through this method, he could continuously increase his control over his psychic power. The soldiers patrolling under the tree passed by. When they heard the sound, they looked up. They said, "It's so windy tonight." Then they continued to patrol. On this day, a shocking news broke out in the base. When Mosher went to feed the zombies as usual, he heard a conversation between 2 teachers on the school field. When the laboratory was developing antibodies, they accidentally discovered a new medicine. This new medicine has a certain chance of stimulating the potential of human cells, strengthening human genes, and greatly increasing strength. Are you serious? Isn't this too sci-fi? Of course it's true. I heard that a volunteer has already succeeded in strengthening. Now, he can punch with 500 kilograms of strength, 500 kilograms. The teacher immediately exclaimed in a low voice. Stronger than the loud-mouthed zombie captain. The previous person said, the first phase of clinical trials is now underway. It's estimated that it won't be long before everyone can be injected with this enhancer. If that's the case, we won't have to be afraid of zombies in the future. Hearing this, Mosher nodded secretly. Those guys in the laboratory had finally done something right. In fact, Only a month later, the base leader personally announced the gene enhancer. This matter caused an uproar in the entire base. They had been suppressed by zombies for too long. Many people felt that the future was gloomy. But now with the gene enhancer, the strength of human beings would be greatly increased. This brought a glimmer of hope to people who had been suppressed for too long. Another month later, people in the base had begun to inject the gene enhancer. Chapter 9. The gene enhancers produced in the laboratory were given priority to the corpse hunters. The entire base, from Area A to Area T. A total of 20 corpse hunters. More than 400 corpse hunters were injected with gene enhancers. In the end, 15 corpse hunters were successfully strengthened. In the corpse hunters in Area A, the loud-mouthed captain was not strengthened successfully. Instead, the slightly sissy vice-captain was strengthened successfully. This was a surprise to everyone. Next, the 15 corpse hunters tried to form a team and go out. They killed in all directions outside the base. They were successful in every endeavor. The 15 people killed more than 500 zombies in 3 days. And no one was injured. This news greatly excited everyone's hearts. When they returned, they were welcomed by the people of the base. Mo Sure was on the road in front of the corpse farm, watching the 15 people with smiles and excitement on their faces. He thought to himself, these people seem to be a little arrogant. They were so complacent with only 500 kilograms of force. But it had nothing to do with him, so he continued to sign in silently. Soon, after these people who were successfully strengthened went out, they were not simply catching a few zombies back, but hunting zombies on a large scale. Therefore, they were given a resounding title, Corpse Hunters. They were also personally rewarded by the head of the base. The experts of the base came to a conclusion after data deduction. Corpse hunters could continuously stimulate the potential of the human body through high-intensity training. Thus, their strength would continue to increase. Through a large amount of data collection, calculation, and deduction, they found that the corpse hunters should be able to strengthen their strength to about 5,000 kilograms. This was the limit. So they divided the corpse hunters into 10 levels according to their strength. Every 500 kilograms was a level. Level 1 corpse hunters had 500 kilograms of force. Level 2 corpse hunters had 1,000 kilograms of force. And so on. Level 10 corpse hunters had 5,000 kilograms of force. At the same time, they developed a new strength tester for the corpse hunters. The maximum value of the strength tester could reach 10,000 kilograms. This greatly stimulated those corpse hunters. They continued to increase the intensity of their training. And the effect was also significant. Through training, their strength continued to increase. On the 5th day after the injection, the first corpse hunter to break through 600 kilograms of force appeared. A month after the injection, the first corpse hunter to break through 700 kilograms of force appeared. 3 months after the injection, the first corpse hunter to break through 1,000 kilograms appeared. He became the first level 2 corpse hunter in the entire base. The entire base was once again in an uproar. Everyone could see the dawn of the future. Once again, the chief of the base personally rewarded this level 2 zombie hunter. However, to everyone's surprise, the first level 2 zombie hunter turned out to be the slightly effeminate vice-captain. He had a domineering name, Guo Jutao. Now that he had been promoted to a level 2 zombie hunter, he had been promoted to the vice-captain of the body hunters. Mo Sure stood at the entrance of the corpse farm, watching Guo Jutao pass by. He thought to himself, this giant woman's strength of 1,000 kilograms is level 2. What level should I be? His strength should be at least 2,000 kilograms. It was about level 4 or 5. Should I find another chance to test it? When he thought of this, his heart began to stir. That afternoon, while everyone else went to the cafeteria to eat, Mo Sure went to the gym alone. There were still 3 hunters training in the gym. Nowadays, these hunters were all training maniacs. Mosher did not act rashly. Instead, he picked up a rag and began to wipe the fitness equipment. The three hunters were training and chatting at the same time. When they saw Mosher come in, they only glanced at him, then ignored him and continued to chat. Mosher was just a corpse farmer. On the other hand, they were already high and mighty zombie hunters. The two had no interaction at all. Naturally, there was no need to pay attention to them. Half an hour later, the three of them came to the dynamometer one after another. It was a habit of all hunters to test their strength after every training. Bang, 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 the three of them hit 880 kilograms, 970 kilograms, and 834 kilograms respectively. Damn, you're about to be promoted to level 2. Only 30 kilograms more. Kid, you're about to become the second zombie hunter to be promoted to level 2. Awesome. The two hunters who only hit 800 kilograms were a little envious. 970's face was also filled with joy. But he pretended to be modest. You guys will be soon too. As they spoke, the three of them left the gym. When they passed by Mosher, they completely treated him as air. Mosher did not mind. After they left, he came to the dynamometer. He glanced at the screen of the dynamometer. On the screen, it showed that one of the hunters hit 834 kilograms. Mosher clenched his right fist and took a breath. Then he threw a punch. It hit the target in the middle of the dynamometer. Bang! There was a loud sound. The number on the dynamometer's screen changed rapidly. After a while, the number stopped. 2,613 kilograms. Mosher saw this number and was a little surprised. In order to avoid making too much noise like last time, he only used 50% of his strength. He did not expect it to hit 2,613 kilograms. This made him lick his lips uncontrollably. He used his telekinesis to sense that there was no one nearby. He clenched his right fist again. It seemed that this dynamometer was quite sturdy. Let's try again. Thinking of this, he shouted in a low voice. He suddenly threw a punch. This time, he used all his strength. Bang! The number on the dynamometer's screen changed rapidly again. After a while, it stopped again. 5,499 kilograms. Looking at this number, Mosher's eyes widened. According to the level that the experts had deduced, 5,000 kilograms of force meant that he was a level 10 hunter. And as early as 3 years ago, he had already strengthened his body to the limit. In other words, at that time, before the concept of hunters existed, he was already level 10. With excitement, he tried 5 more punches in a row. Bang 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 bang, every punch weighed 5,499 kilograms. Mosher understood. The limit that he had always felt was 5,499 kilograms. It seemed that he was now the zombie hunter's ceiling. Thinking of this, Mosher felt a little satisfied. When most of the hunters were only at the lowest level of level 1, he had already reached level 10. It felt pretty good to be the ceiling. But even so, Mosher still did not intend to expose himself. The other hunter's improvement was traceable. He suddenly stood out, and was already the zombie hunter's ceiling. This would inevitably arouse suspicion. And life was already so difficult, so he did not want to hurt them. Moreover, was a level 10 zombie hunter very powerful? If he really went out of the base, how far could he go in the face of thousands of zombies? So, it was better to continue hiding. It was still the same sentence. Wouldn't it be better to hide until he was invincible? In the following days, the body hunters began to break through to level 2. In just over a month, the body hunters had 3 level 2 zombie hunters. Now, the body hunters had a total of 4 level 2 zombies. The rest had basically reached more than 900 kilograms of force and would break through soon. The strength of the body hunters had greatly increased. They went out of the base to hunt more and more zombies. In these 3 months, the body hunters had killed tens of thousands of zombies. Such a result made the entire base rejoice. The leader of the base had already ordered all resources to be concentrated in the laboratory. Let them produce gene enhancers with all their strength. Strive to inject all 30,000 troops with gene enhancers within a month. Inject all 100,000 people in the base within half a year. As soon as this order was issued, the people in the base were excited again. Everyone had a chance to become stronger. Everyone had a chance to become a zombie hunter. How could this not make them excited? However, what they did not know was, as the body hunters were hunting zombies on a large scale outside, a huge crisis was quietly approaching. Chapter 10. While everyone in the base was filled with excitement, a crisis was quietly approaching. On this day, Immortal wandered around Area A for half an hour. In the end, he decided to sign in at the laboratory. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, 1 brain cell enhancer. Immortal was overjoyed. Now that his body had been strengthened to the limit, he couldn't continue to strengthen it. But his brain cells were far from the limit. It was just that the brain cell enhancer could only be signed out occasionally. How could this not make him excited? Returning to the zombie farm, he injected the brain cell enhancer. He felt a heat in his head. It was also a little swollen. But this feeling only lasted for 5 minutes before disappearing. His psychokinesis increased by a few notches. He tried to spread his psychic power out. Everything within a radius of 350 meters could be seen. He estimated that after a few more injections, this range would be expanded to 400 meters. When he went to feed the zombies in the afternoon, as soon as he opened the door of the zombie room, the zombie roared and wanted to pounce on him. Immortal smiled faintly. His psychic power instantly spread out and pressed against the zombie. The zombie immediately retracted its claws and retreated in fear. In the end, it shrank in the corner. It didn't dare to move. This was the deterrence Immortal's powerful psychic power had on the zombies. Although the zombies didn't have intelligence, their brains were still releasing brainwaves. Immortal used his powerful psychic power to affect their brainwaves. He activated the area of their cerebral cortex that controlled fear. This made them feel fear. If others saw that the zombies without any intelligence would be so afraid of Immortal, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. It was late at night. Suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. It pierced through the night sky. It echoed over the entire base. Everyone in the base was awakened. Then, the sound of a loudspeaker sounded, "All residents, close the doors and windows and stay at home. Don't go out before the alarm is lifted. All residents, close the doors and windows and stay at home. Don't go out before the alarm is lifted." Immortal was also awakened. He rubbed his sleepy eyes. He thought to himself that it couldn't be that those guys in the laboratory had created another mutated zombie, right? However, the alarm didn't come from the laboratory. Instead, it came from Zone T. Immortal wondered if he should go over and take a look. At this time, the cadaver hunters in Area A who were passing by outside the corpse farm heard calls from their walkie-talkies. Zombies appeared in T District's residential area. All patrols, body hunters, and the body hunters, go to support them immediately. Immortal was shocked when he heard the voice. F***CK, why did zombies suddenly appear in the residential area? Could it be that the zombies from the T District zombie farm had escaped? And from the sound of it, it wasn't a small group of zombies. Otherwise, there was no need to summon the body hunters, patrol teams, and even the body hunters from Area A. He wondered what the situation was like. Immortal thought for a moment, then immediately put on his clothes and stood up. He quietly slipped out of the corpse farm. At the same time, in the residential area of District T, about 50 people from the T District's patrol team and the body hunters were waiting at the entrance of the residential area. However, their eyes were filled with grief, anger, and despair. There were 20 buildings in the entire residential area. At this time, the screams of humans and the roars of zombies were constantly coming from the 5 buildings in front of them. There were already hundreds of zombies in the yard, rushing towards the entrance. In the residential building behind, the residents wanted to escape, but there were zombies everywhere downstairs. They could only hide upstairs. With the feeble strength of the T District's patrol team and the body hunters, it was impossible to rescue the people in the residential building behind them. At this time, screams came from the 6th building behind them. "Oh no, the 6th building has also been breached." One of the cadaver hunters cried out in shock. Everyone in the T District's body hunters heard this and their faces turned ugly. The captain's eyes were red. He called out in a hoarse voice, "The 6th building has been breached. Backup, requesting backup, why aren't they here yet?" A voice came from the walkie-talkie, "The other district's body hunters and patrol teams are rushing over. The army stationed at the city wall is also rushing over." Hearing this, the captain's eyes were filled with despair. When the army arrived, the thousands of people in the residential area would probably be infected. At that time, they would no longer be able to stop these zombies. He asked again, "Where are the body hunters?" The voice from the walkie-talkie replied, "The body hunters are rushing over, at most 5 minutes." Hearing this, the captain's despair lessened slightly. At the same time, Embark was also rushing towards the T District. Every step he took was 50 meters. The A District's body hunters were originally ahead of him. However, he had already quietly overtaken them and left them far behind. At this time, the nearby district's body hunters and patrol teams had already arrived. They quickly surrounded the entire residential area. They climbed up the wall and used their rifles to clear the zombies in the yard. However, there were too many zombies in the yard. There were only about 500 people in the corpse hunting team and the patrol team. Moreover, as long as the zombies weren't hit in the head, they wouldn't fall down. Not all of the team members were like sharpshooters who could hit the head with every shot. Therefore, these body hunters and patrol teams couldn't clear the zombies quickly. At this time, screams came from Building 7. Everyone's heart trembled. Creak. At this time, 3 specially reinforced black military vehicles stopped at the entrance of the residential area. Seeing the 3 military vehicles, everyone was overjoyed. "The body hunters are here. The body hunters are finally here. The body hunters are outside the base, hunting zombies by the hundreds and thousands. With them here, the residential area is saved." The T District's body hunters captain hurriedly went up to greet them. After a brief introduction, the 15 body hunters entered the residential area. Although they also had guns on them. However, they were mainly cold weapons such as knives and axes. Crack, the body hunter's long axes directly cut a terrifying bloody hole in the head of a zombie. Blood gurgled out. Another flying kick landed on the head of another zombie. These 2 zombies suddenly fell to the ground. They couldn't get up again. The other team members also brandished long axes or long swords and killed their way into the residential area. The zombies in the courtyard of the residential area were instantly killed as if they were crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. The patrol team and body hunters at the entrance hurriedly followed behind to help. With the addition of the body hunters, the speed of clearing the zombies was very fast. At this rate, the zombies in this residential area could be cleared in at most 20 minutes. However, things weren't as simple as they thought. When they arrived in front of Building 5, a large number of roars suddenly burst out from the building. Hundreds of zombies rushed out of the building. And the zombies in the other buildings seemed to have been premeditated. They all rushed towards the body hunters. In just 2 minutes, there were 600 to 700 zombies. Under the moonlight, the shadows of the corpses were everywhere. It was extremely terrifying. The body hunters were already surrounded. The body hunters' hearts all trembled. Although they had hunted hundreds and thousands of zombies in the past, those zombies basically didn't have consciousness. They were led by the nose by them. However, these zombies today seemed to have already discussed and set up a trap. They were waiting for them to go in. How could zombies be so smart? Helpless, they could only hide in 3 rooms. They relied on the terrain to defend. At this time, screams and roars could be heard from building number 8. Building 8 had also fallen into the enemy's hands. At the same time, Immortal was about 2 kilometers away from this residential area. Chapter 11. T District, Residential Area. 7 out of the 20 buildings had already fallen. In the apocalypse, the doors of the residential buildings were specially reinforced. The doors and windows of every house were also covered with 5 mm thick steel plates. Even an axe would have a hard time cutting through them. No one knew how these zombies broke into the residential buildings. The body hunters were all proud of themselves when they hunted zombies outside. But now, these zombies seemed to be organized and disciplined. They set a trap to lure the body hunters over. The body hunters and T District's body hunters were trapped in 3 rooms in Building 3. They could only rely on the terrain to defend. Just as they were having a hard time defending, bad news came one after another. Building 8 had fallen. Another 5 minutes later. Building 9 had fallen. There were at least 100 people in each building, and at most 300 people. After each building fell, there would soon be 100 to 300 more zombies. And the residents of these residential buildings, after being infected and turned into zombies, would rush towards the body hunters. There were more and more zombies around, and there were already thousands of them. Even the hunter squad was in despair at this time. "Captain, what should we do?" Vice Captain Guo Jitao's feminine voice came. The body hunters also looked at their captain. The captain of the body hunters blew off a zombie's head with a shot and roared, "Hold on, wait for the army's support." Everyone was silent. They relied on the terrain, so they could still hold on. But the army was stationed near the city wall. It would take about 20 minutes for them to arrive. And the few buildings behind them were constantly being breached. By the time the army arrived, the dozen or so buildings behind them would be completely destroyed. But what could they do? In this situation, they were already extremely lucky to be able to keep their lives. What else could they do? Around the residential buildings, the body hunters and patrol members saw more and more zombies in the residential area. They heard more and more screams and roars coming from upstairs. Their eyes were all red. They were angry, but there was nothing they could do. What was despair? Watching tragic things happen, but there was nothing they could do. The feeling of powerlessness filled their whole body. This was called despair. At this time, Immortal had already arrived at the wall of the residential area in District T. In front of him, there were more than 10 members of the corpse hunting team shooting into the courtyard. Immortal leaped up and landed on a nearby parasol tree. He looked inside. Under the moonlight, the shadows of the zombies in the courtyard were like ghosts. With just a glance, he saw more than 200 zombies. Moreover, these zombies seemed to be organized and disciplined as they all ran towards building number 3. There were already thousands of zombies surrounding building number 3. Immortal heard from the nearby body hunters that the body hunters had been surrounded. His heart shuddered. These zombies seemed to have a strong purpose. They were here for the body hunters. It seemed like he had no choice but to make a move today. Although it was his usual style to be as humble as possible. But without the skin, where can the hair attach? If this place was infected, the entire base would be gone. At that time, his comfortable days would come to an end. Thinking of this, he leaped. In an instant, he crossed 50 meters. He jumped over the wall and landed in the courtyard. A few members of the corpse hunting team by the wall suddenly saw a human fly over their heads like a flying immortal. One by one, they were so shocked that their mouths were wide open and their eyes were wide. Emosure landed more than 30 meters inside the wall. More than a dozen zombies nearby saw him and immediately opened their bloody mouths. They stretched out their blood-stained hands and pounced over. Emosure glanced at them and casually picked up an iron chain from a pile of debris by the wall. This iron chain was as thick as an arm. It was more than 20 meters long. Ordinary people couldn't pick it up at all. Emosure picked it up easily. Then, he threw it out like a long whip. Woo, this iron chain as thick as an arm actually drew a huge semicircle. It smashed fiercely into the few zombies in front of it. Bang, those zombies were instantly smashed in the face. Flesh and blood splattered. They were directly smashed into meat paste. Even the cement floor was smashed until it burst open with a bang. It formed a burst mark that was more than 20 meters long and more than a meter wide. Then, Emosure swung the iron chain in his hand. It swept a circle. Woo, the dozen or so zombies around were no exception. They were all swept in half at the waist. Emosure dragged the blood-red iron chain and ran straight to the third building in the distance. Clatter, the iron chain rubbed against the ground, emitting sparks from time to time. The dozen or so members of the corpse hunters on the wall saw this scene. They were all dumbfounded. This is the mysterious powerhouse who has been hiding. They knew that this mysterious powerhouse was very strong. But they didn't expect him to be so strong. One iron chain smashed 5 zombies into meat paste. Another iron chain cut more than a dozen zombies in half at the waist. This was obviously more than one level stronger than the members of the body hunters. And when this person appeared just now, he flew over their heads dozens of meters and landed on the ground. Thinking of this, these members of the corpse hunters were even more shocked. Did you see who it was? The captain of the corpse hunters asked. All the members shook their heads. Although the moonlight was bright, it was impossible to see a person's face at a distance of 20 to 30 meters. What's more, Emosure didn't show them his face. The captain of the corpse hunters shook his head. We'll talk about this later. Let's clean up the zombies first. Then he raised his gun and shot at the head of a zombie. These zombies had now been cut in half by the iron chain. But they still used their hands to support themselves on the ground, trying to crawl in the direction of the third building. But the difficulty of the corpse hunters' shooting was greatly reduced. At this time, Emosure was dragging the blood-red iron chain. There were only sparks and no lightning along the way. He ran toward the third building. No matter how many zombies he encountered on the way, he basically threw out the iron chain. It was easy to deal with. And the iron chain he threw out at this time was basically aimed at the zombies' heads. This iron chain as thick as a wrist, as long as it touched the zombies' heads, it would basically explode. The kind that would really explode. Bang 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 bang, along the way, hundreds of zombies died under his iron chain. The whole iron chain had already turned bright red. It was like the iron chain that imprisoned the demons in hell. Clatter, when the iron chain was dragged on the ground, it dragged out a bright red trace. The other corpse hunters and patrol members by the wall had already discovered that a person had jumped into the neighborhood. From afar, they could only see this person constantly waving the iron chain in his hand. The heads of the surrounding zombies exploded one after another. Those hundreds of zombies, in front of him, were simply like mud. They all reacted one by one. Surprised and happy. It's him. That mysterious strong person. F***CK, this is too abnormal. This kind of strength, I'm afraid he has already reached level 4, or even level 5 corpse hunters. Unfortunately, it's too far, I can't see what he looks like. At this time, Emosure was not far from the third building. But just as he passed by the 9th building, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Looking at the third floor of the 9th building. His Virus X detection could clearly sense that there was a zombie there. The amount of virus X in this zombie's body was much more than other zombies. In other words, this zombie was many times stronger than normal zombies. Chapter 12. Mosher raised his head and looked somewhere on the third floor of building number 9. Through Virus X, he could clearly sense that there was a zombie there. A zombie that was dozens of times stronger than normal zombies. He pondered for a moment and understood. No wonder these zombies seemed to be organized and disciplined. It turned out that this powerful zombie was commanding them. This made Mosher's expression slightly dignified. If he guessed correctly, this would prove a terrible fact: some zombies already have intelligence. This was definitely not a good thing for the survivors in the base. Thinking of this, Mosher put the iron chain in his hand into the system backpack. With a leap, he jumped to the third floor of building number 9. At this time, on residential building number 9. All the residents were terrified. They heard the screams and roars, getting closer and closer to the building they were in. Their hearts were already drowned in panic and despair. Who could save them? Where are the body hunters? Why haven't the body hunters come yet? A young man was breaking down. It's over, we're all finished. Another middle-aged man shook his head. Whether it was his eyes or his expression, they were all filled with despair. In a room on the third floor. Dad, will we become zombies? A 10-year-old girl tightly hugged her father's arm and asked in horror. Don't worry, the body hunters will protect us. Dad will also protect you. You definitely won't become a zombie. Dad stroked his daughter's head and softly comforted her. However, under the dim light, his tears were already flowing down uncontrollably. His tears were not for himself, but for his daughter. If he dies, but his daughter is only 10 years old. God, how can you bear to do this? You want me to die 10 times or 100 times, I can die however you want. I just beg you, let my daughter live. The mother next to her was already in tears. She hugged her daughter tightly. Little Yen, don't be afraid, we will be fine. At this moment, bang, the door that was reinforced with steel plates was suddenly knocked open by a huge force. It fell into the room. The mother hurriedly hugged her daughter tightly in the bedroom. Bang, the bedroom door was also blasted open by a huge force. A figure appeared at the bedroom door. He could vaguely see that it was a person with a hole in his head and a face full of blood. The flesh on his face seemed to have been bitten off by something a long time ago. Through the holes on his face, one could see the teeth inside. In the bedroom, his daughter screamed in horror. His mother's eyes were also wide open. Her gaze was filled with deep fear and grief. She hugged her daughter tightly and kept shaking her head. No. The father held a crowbar and stood in front of the mother and daughter. He was not a soldier. He was not a patrol member. He was not a member of the corpse hunters. He was definitely not a zombie hunter. He was just an ordinary person. However, he was a father. The tears on his face were still wet. However, his eyes were filled with anger. Brandishing the crowbar in his hand, he bellowed. Get out of my way. Scram! Xiao Gun smashed down towards the zombie. However, when the crowbar hit the zombie's head, it only made a muffled sound. The zombie let out a roar from its throat. He kicked at the man. Bang! The man was sent flying and crashed into the wall. Crack! A few ribs in his chest were broken. Puff, cough, 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 a large mouthful of blood spurted out. He coughed violently. The intense pain almost made him faint. However, he couldn't faint. How could he faint? The zombie ignored the man and walked towards the mother and son. However, when it passed by the man hugged its foot. He raised his head with difficulty and said to the woman, Run, run, bang. The zombie kicked the man's abdomen again. The man crashed into the wall again. Crack! Both of his arms and legs were broken. Puff! Blood spurted out of his mouth again. The zombie came in front of the man. There seemed to be a mocking look in his eyes. The man was completely furious. He also let out a beast-like roar. Ah! He opened his mouth and bit the zombie's ankle. He shouted vaguely at the woman. Take her away. The woman's face was covered in tears. An unprecedented power erupted from her body. Holding her daughter, she fled towards the door. However, in front of this obviously mutated zombie, her speed was too slow. The zombie kicked the man 3 meters away and he crashed into the wall for the 3rd time. The paint on the wall was peeled off. Then, the zombie grabbed the woman's shoulder. It opened its mouth and bit down on the back of her neck. No! The man, who was almost unconscious, let out a desperate roar from his throat. His eyes were blood red, almost spitting fire. However, with his limbs broken, what could he do? He couldn't do anything. He hated it. He hated his powerlessness. He hated that he wasn't a zombie hunter. He hated that he couldn't protect his daughter. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. His speed was extremely fast, not like a human at all. He jumped into the house in an instant. He kicked the zombie's head. Bang! When the zombie's mouth was less than 10 centimeters away from his mother. His head suddenly seemed to be hit by a high-speed boulder. Boom! The zombie's entire head, along with its upper body, had sunk deep into the wall. A large amount of blood suddenly gushed out from the wall. The zombie's head had been kicked into meat paste by this kick. The whole house was suddenly filled with smoke and dust. The man's already blurred vision only saw a human figure appear. The next moment, he had already fainted. The woman also turned her head and looked at the person who saved their family in shock. However, at this moment, because the kick was too powerful, the wall caved in. A lot of the paint on the wall fell off. Dust flew. The woman couldn't open her eyes at all. The next moment, a cold thing was suddenly stuffed into her hand. A voice came, "Take it orally." The woman forced her eyes open a little. She saw that the blurry figure had disappeared outside the door. The woman was stunned for a moment. When the smoke and dust dissipated a little, she looked down at the thing in her hand. She saw that it was a small glass bottle. It was filled with an aquamarine liquid. She didn't know what this liquid was. But since that person had saved them just now, he shouldn't hurt them again. And at this time, she didn't know how serious her husband's injury was. There were zombies everywhere outside. It was impossible to find a doctor. The woman only hesitated for a few seconds. She put down her daughter and held up her husband's head. She gave the aquamarine liquid to her husband. Just more than 10 seconds later, her husband, who had been unconscious, woke up. And the bruises on her husband's face were quickly disappearing. The man regained consciousness and hurriedly asked the woman, "How are you and your daughter? Are you hurt?" The woman's eyes were filled with tears. She wiped the blood from the man's mouth and shook her head, "We're fine." "How do you feel?" At first, the man still felt that some of his limbs were broken, and there was a sharp pain. But soon, the sharp pain quickly subsided. In just 5 minutes, the pain completely disappeared. He tried to move his arm. He was surprised to find that the place where his arm was broken was as good as new. In surprise, he tried to stand up again. In the end, he really did stand up. His limbs were as if they had never been broken. The family of 3 were all surprised and happy. They cried tears of joy. They hugged each other. A moment later, the man asked, "Who is the person who saved us?" The woman shook her head, I didn't see clearly." The man paused for a moment and said, "In any case, we will remember this kindness for the rest of our lives." Chapter 13. In fact, Emosher did not intend to give his recovery medicine to others. However, that man's behavior couldn't help but move Mo Sure. So he gave them a bottle. Anyway, there were hundreds of bottles of recovery medicine in his personal storage. He came out of the house and planned to continue to rush to the third building. In his mind, he recalled the appearance of the zombie just now. It seemed that it should be a mutated zombie. It was very strong and much faster than ordinary zombies. It should be able to reach about 20 meters per second. But compared to the mutated zombie created in the laboratory more than a year ago, it was much weaker. But the difference was that this wild mutated zombie seemed to be intelligent. It obviously ordered the other zombies to besiege the body hunters. And he himself was constantly infecting these floors. Then, more zombies would appear, luring the tiger away from the mountain. The zombies actually knew the art of war. Mo Sure sighed in his heart. Zombies were not scary, but zombies with culture were scary. Just as he was about to jump down from the third floor, suddenly, in the house behind him, a black shadow jumped towards him. This black shadow was also a zombie. A large part of its shoulder was missing. Its left eye had also disappeared. There was also a terrible wound on its face that looked like it was cut by an axe. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. But its speed was extremely fast. Obviously, this was also a mutated zombie. Mo Sure snorted coldly. His body slightly moved to the side and avoided the mutated zombie. At the same time, he kicked towards the back of the black shadow's head. With his strength, under this kick, the mutated zombie's head would definitely explode. However, at this moment, a strange change suddenly occurred. After his right foot kicked over, not only did the mutated zombie's head not explode. Instead, from the back of its head, a big mouth suddenly opened. In the big mouth, the saliva shone brightly under the moonlight. The sharp teeth were clearly visible. Mo Sure's kick just happened to land right in the middle of the mouth. The big mouth suddenly closed. Crack! Mo Sure's entire right foot was bitten off from the ankle. Under the moonlight, the white bones could clearly be seen at the fracture. The mutated zombie's mouth was constantly chewing. The cracking sounds made one's scalp go numb. Mo Sure felt a sharp pain coming from the wound. The pain was so intense that he almost blacked out and fainted. He still had too little combat experience. In addition, they didn't expect that there would be a big mouth on the back of this mutated zombie's head. After swallowing Mo Sure's leg, the colossal zombie roared and rushed towards him. Mo Sure's right leg was already broken, there was no way he could escape. It seemed that he could only watch as the zombie tore him apart. However, right at this moment, his mind moved. His right arm quickly thickened. Rip, his sleeves were torn apart. His entire right arm instantly grew to 3 times its original size. At the same time, his right arm was covered with black scales. His right hand had already transformed into a dragon claw. 5 sharp claws, each curved and sharp. Under the moonlight, it shone with a cold light. Titan Dragon Claw. Mo Sure clenched his right claw and pushed it forward. He wanted to see how strong the Titan Dragon Claw was. The big mouth on the back of the colossal zombie's head suddenly opened. With a crack, it bit Mo Sure's dragon claw. Crack crack crack, only a crisp sound was heard. The colossal zombie seemed to have bitten on an iron stone. It couldn't bite down at all. Mo Sure understood. The Titan Dragon Claw's abnormal defensive power, even bullets couldn't penetrate it. Then, his right claw casually slashed. A black light flashed. Swish, the colossal zombie's body was easily cut into several pieces. Blood splattered and splashed on the wall of the aisle. It was like a splash ink painting. The Titan Dragon Claw's sharpness was definitely not lower than the bloodthirsty zombie slayer. And this Titan Dragon Claw seemed to have a suppressive effect on the zombie's self-healing ability. This suppressive effect seemed to be stronger than the bloodthirsty zombie slayer. After the zombie slayer slashed, the zombie's body would heal itself. But the speed of self-healing was far slower than the speed of corrosion. And now, after his claw slashed, the colossal zombie's body didn't have any intention of self-healing. He moved his mind and the Titan dragon claw retracted. He looked at the broken pieces of cloth on the ground. He shook his head again and sighed. This Titan dragon claw was strong, but it was a waste of sleeves. Then, he looked down at the cut on his right foot. He saw the muscles there squirming quickly. It was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a short minute, his right foot had grown back. Broken limbs regenerated. This was the ability he got after injecting the mutant gecko gene enhancer. With this ability, breaking an arm or a leg was not a problem for Immortal. After his right foot recovered, he didn't immediately go to Building 3. Instead, he waited for a moment. He sensed to see if there were other colossal zombies nearby. Sure enough, a moment later, he sensed 2 more colossal zombies. But the 2 colossal zombies obviously knew how strong Immortal was. They didn't show up. Immortal stood up and took out a pair of shoes from his backpack to put on. Then, with a sudden leap, he directly crossed a distance of 50 meters. He jumped from Building 9 to the 4th floor of Building 10. He smashed open a security door with a punch. The colossal zombie in the room couldn't hide and could only let out a beast-like roar. It pounced on Immortal. Immortal didn't want to waste any more time. The Titan dragon claw appeared and slashed out instantly. The colossal zombie's head was suddenly cut into several pieces like a watermelon. Immortal jumped up again. He came to the 7th floor. He pulled out a colossal zombie inside. This time, he used the bloodthirsty zombie slayer. The tip of the blade pierced straight into its mouth. He could clearly feel that the zombie slayer instantly absorbed a large amount of blood. Then it turned into a strong acid. Buzz buzz, the colossal zombie's wound was directly corroded into a large hole the size of an arm. Its body also fell to the ground with a bang. Then, Immortal stopped for a moment and carefully sensed. There were no more colossal zombies or other ordinary zombies nearby. Then, he jumped down from the 5th floor. Boom, after landing, the cement floor under his feet was cracked inch by the impact. Immortal's mouth twitched slightly. The newly grown foot hadn't been trained yet. Being hit by such a strong impact, it was a little painful. Slowed down. He quickly ran in the direction of Building 3. When he was not far from Building 3, he saw the dense number of zombies and couldn't help but gasp. There were probably already thousands of zombies here. They kept roaring and rushing toward the 3 rooms on the 1st floor. Around the room, there were already zombies lying on the ground. Blood and broken limbs were left on the ground. These zombies stepped on hundreds of corpses and rushed toward the 3 rooms like a tide. Obviously, these zombies were coming for the body hunters. At the same time, Immortal also sensed that on the 2nd floor of Building 3. There was a colossal zombie. It should be this colossal zombie that was controlling these ordinary zombies. At this time, in the 3 rooms on the 1st floor, there were a total of the body hunters, T-area corpse hunters, and T-area patrol team, more than 30 people. But these people were already a little desperate at this time. There were so many zombies outside that it seemed like there was no end to killing them. "Captain, I'm out of bullets. I only have 13 bullets left." "Captain, why isn't the army here yet?" Several corpse hunters and patrol team members cried out in despair. The body hunters looked even more dignified. They thought that after becoming corpse hunters, they could do whatever they wanted in front of any zombies. But they didn't expect that they were still too naive. These hunters originally had a bright future ahead of them. As long as they were given some more time, they could continue to become stronger through training. But now, I'm afraid, they don't have that chance. Especially those level 2 corpse hunters. All of them were unwilling to accept this. They were all corpse hunters, how could they be like ordinary people and be surrounded by zombies like this? Despair is contagious. When a person has despair, it will quickly spread to others. Especially in the current situation. However, at this time, a roar suddenly came from the second floor. Roar, roar, roar. When the zombies heard this roar, they suddenly gave up attacking the 3 rooms. Instead, they quickly turned and left. The 30 people who were already in despair were all stunned when they saw this. Captain, the zombies escaped. Why did they suddenly escape? Everyone was a little confused. But the zombies leaving was a good thing for them after all. The leader of the body hunters put away his despair and said to everyone, observe carefully and see what's going on. Everyone immediately carefully looked outside through the windows and the cracks of the door. With one look, everyone, including the members of the body hunters, were stunned. They were all dumbfounded. Chapter 14. When the hunters, catchers, and patrols of Zone T looked out through the cracks in the doors and windows, they saw a strange scene unfolding before their eyes. Everyone was dumbfounded. They saw a figure slowly walking over under the moonlight. And those thousands of zombies were rushing towards this person like a tide. It seemed that the roar on the second floor just now had ordered these zombies to attack that figure. At the same time, in the other buildings around, there were also zombies running towards that figure. And that figure was still standing in the same place. Not panicking. Not in a mess. Not moving. Like a rock in a huge wave. Those thousands of zombies were facing this person. Like thousands of hungry wolves pouncing on a sheep. No matter who it was, they could foresee the consequences of this sheep. However, a strange scene happened. When the thousands of zombies were only about 10 meters away from the man suddenly shouted. Suddenly. Bang, there was a muffled sound. A zombie's head exploded into a cloud of blood mist without warning. Under the moonlight, the blood mist bloomed. And that figure under the moonlight didn't move. Bang, another muffled sound. The second zombie's head also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth, bang 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 bang, more and more. Faster and faster. The zombies' heads exploded into clouds of blood mist one after another. Thousands of zombies were like firecrackers. Heads kept exploding. Under the moonlight, only clouds of blood mist could be seen spreading. In just 30 seconds. The heads of more than 1,000 zombies actually exploded at the same time. Only then did the bodies of the zombies fall to the ground one after another. In the middle of these more than 1,000 corpses, that figure still didn't move. As steady as an old dog. His figure was in the blood mist that rose around him. He was faintly discernible. At this moment, all the members of the body hunters, and the patrol team in Building 3. Their faces were full of shock. On the distant wall, hundreds of other members of the body hunters and the patrol team. They were also full of shock. What did they see? Without moving, he killed thousands of zombies in seconds. This was beyond their understanding. At this moment, the indistinct figure within the blood mist appeared. In their eyes, he was like a god. They were not the only ones. On the second floor of Building 3. The mutated zombie with a huge wound on its neck. Seeing this scene, his grayish-white eyes were also filled with fear. Originally, he thought that except for the hunters who went out to hunt zombies, the rest of the human beings were extremely weak. However, at this moment, this human had unleashed an ability that he could not understand. At this moment, Mosher had a faint smile on his face. He used telekinesis to stimulate the zombies' brain cells. It made all the zombies' brain cells boil. As the pressure in their brains increased, their brains naturally exploded. The range of his telekinesis could reach a radius of 300 meters. Then, the range of this move could reach a radius of 300 meters. Therefore, between buildings 1 to 8, In addition to the mutated zombie, all the other 1,700 zombies were cleared by him in one move. One move to kill more than 1,700 zombies. Who else could it be? However, this move really consumed too much telekinesis. In just one move, Emosher felt that more than half of his telekinesis was consumed. At this moment, he looked up at the second floor of Building 3. Then he took a step forward. He jumped to the second floor in 2 steps. However, at the same time as he jumped to the second floor, the mutated zombie had already jumped out. It was about to flee into the distance like crazy. The body hunters, and the patrols all looked at each other when they saw this scene. The zombie was scared away. In their understanding, zombies were the living dead. They had no feelings, no emotions. Naturally, they had no feelings of fear. But now, they were scared away by that person. This was 2F** King perverted. Seeing this, Emosher shook his head. Can you run away? Then his right hand shook. Crash, a clear and crisp sound rang out. A 20-meter-long iron chain as thick as a wrist appeared in his hand. The iron chain had long been dyed blood red. He jumped. He crossed 50 meters in an instant. In the air, the blood-red iron chain in his hand swung in a huge semicircle. Under the moonlight, it was like a huge blood blade, slashing towards the mutated zombie. Its strength was fierce, like a giant elephant. Its momentum was fast, like thunder. The mutated zombie had no time to dodge. Boom, the iron chain was like a 20-meter-long iron rod. It smashed onto the mutated zombie's head. Boom. The mutated zombie was like a watermelon that was hit by a hammer. It directly exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Everyone saw this scene from afar, and they were all stunned. Using an iron chain to smash a zombie to explode. What kind of great strength was this? Emosher kept the chain. Using the virus X, he sensed the surroundings. There were no more living zombies. Only then did he move his mind and put the chain back into the system backpack. Then he jumped. 50 meters in an instant. With a few ups and downs, he jumped out from the side of the neighborhood wall. On the wall, several members of the corpse hunting team watched the figure leap over their heads. They were all stunned for a long time. After a moment, their throats made a gulp sound. Is he flying? God? Monster? Or mutated human? Until now, the body hunters in Area A had just arrived. They did not see the surging corpse tide and the scene of humans screaming and running for their lives that they expected. Instead, they saw everyone staring blankly in the southeast direction. What's wrong? The loud-mouthed captain hurriedly asked. A patrol member answered in a daze, what the hell, no, it's God. After Emosher finished dealing with those zombies, he ran towards Area A. Although he did such a big thing, he saved more than half of the neighborhood in Area T, and even the lives of the entire base. But he still did not intend to expose himself. Anyway, saving the base was not the first time. The strength he had just shown was completely beyond that of humans and hunters. If it was coveted by someone, it would be very troublesome. One must know that the most terrifying thing in the world was not zombies, but the human heart. It was easy to dodge an open spear, but difficult to guard against a hidden arrow. So what if he was strong? Was Ao Xiaobao strong? Didn't he still die in the hands of Wei Xiaobao? So before he had the strength to absolutely crush all the enemies, he decided to stay in the corpse farm. Raising corpses, feeding pigs, and signing in every day. How carefree. Why worry about being plotted against by villains? When he returned to the corpse farm, crippled Old Li and cross-eyed Little Bean were still hiding in their rooms, on tenterhooks. Emosher sneaked back to his room. He looked at the blood stains on his clothes. Shaking his head, he changed out of the clothes and threw them into the system backpack. Then he yawned and lay on the bed. After the battle just now, he basically did not consume much physical strength. But he consumed a lot of psychic power. So he felt a little tired. But just as he was lying on the bed, in his mind, the system's voice suddenly sounded. The sign-in system can now be upgraded. Do you want to upgrade? Mo sure was stunned. So the system can be upgraded? Chapter 15. Mo sure didn't expect that the system could be upgraded. When he heard the system's voice, he couldn't help but feel happy. According to his experience playing games in his previous life, after the system was upgraded, he would usually receive a large number of update rewards. He immediately said in his mind, upgrade. The system's voice came, frowny face, upgrade requires 12 hours. Cannot sign in during the upgrade. Mo sure shrugged. It was only 12 hours, not much. The entire base would definitely be under martial law tomorrow, so there was no need to sign in outside. He could sleep in peace. Thinking of this, Mo sure yawned. Not long after, a light snoring sound came out of his mouth. 3:00 at night. Outside the base chief's office, the lights were bright. After confirming that the residents of District T were safe, all the members of the corpse hunting team and patrol team gathered here. The members of the corpse hunting team discussed animatedly. That mysterious powerhouse is too strong. I can't even dream that there would be such a powerhouse. If it weren't for them, the entire community of more than 5,000 people would be finished today. The 15 members of the body hunters were also here. They heard the discussion around them, and each of them had a complicated expression. Most of the body hunters lowered their heads silently. Before tonight, the 15 body hunters had become the focus of the base. Each of them was the star of the base. The hero of the base. They were also proud of themselves. They were even a little arrogant. Outside the base, they killed hundreds and thousands of zombies. They felt that they were almost invincible. No matter how many zombies there were, in their eyes, they were just a group of ants. With a flip of their hand, they could kill a large number of zombies with a slap. However, today's events made them realize how ignorant they were. And how stupid they were. They were too arrogant, too full of themselves. Their strength was just a little stronger than ordinary people. Their speed was just a little faster than ordinary people. They didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. But today's facts gave them a resounding slap in the face. This slap in the face also made them completely sober. It made them understand that they were just a little stronger than ordinary people. They even needed that mysterious powerhouse to save them. If it weren't for that mysterious powerhouse, they would probably be zombies now. Most importantly, that mysterious powerhouse swept away the zombies with a chain. Thousands of zombies were killed in one move. Although he was far more powerful than these hunters, he was much more low-key than them. Last time, there were mutated zombies in the laboratory. This time, there were a large number of zombies. That mysterious expert was instantly killed. Then, after the matter was settled, he would leave, concealing his achievements and fame. Compared to that mysterious expert, they were simply a bunch of clowns. Thinking of this, their heads hung even lower. The slightly effeminate Vice-Captain Guo Jitao saw that his team members were in low spirits. He turned to look at the captain. At this time, the captain had to stand up and say something. However, the captain was already ashamed to the point of being unable to show his face. He was also responsible for the team members' arrogance and ego. What could he say in this situation? Seeing this, Guo Jitao could only withdraw his gaze. After pondering for a moment, he stood up. With a slightly feminine voice, he said, "Brothers, I know that everyone is feeling terrible. I feel the same way. We were too arrogant, too full of ourselves. Compared to that mysterious expert, we're nothing. But we should thank him for giving us a resounding slap in the face. This slap in the face has completely awakened us. We shouldn't be depressed just like this. We have to pull ourselves together. Work hard and train harder to become stronger. Strive to be as strong as that mysterious expert one day. The other team members heard this and raised their heads one after another. The captain also raised his head in surprise, looking at this slightly feminine vice-captain that he had always looked down on. A patrol team member next to him heard this and hesitated for a moment. His hands began to clap. The other patrol team members and the corpse hunters also clapped when they saw this. Well said. Don't be depressed. That mysterious expert saved us. If he saw us so depressed, I think he would be disappointed. With the mysterious expert here, we have no reason to be depressed. The body hunters heard this and finally raised their heads. Their eyes were glowing with a different kind of light. At the same time, in the base chief's office, the chief was flipping through a thick stack of notes in his hand. Page 1, I saw that person fly over the wall. Page 2, that mysterious expert dragged a long iron chain. With one sweep, dozens of zombies were cut in half. Page 3, a mutated zombie's entire upper body was stuck in the wall, suspected to be the work of the mysterious expert. Page 4, the mysterious expert didn't move, and the heads of more than 1,000 zombies around him exploded one after another. Thousands of zombies were killed in one move. Page 5, the more the base chief read, the more shocked his face became. Could a person really reach such a powerful level? Every single thing in here, if taken out individually and placed on another person, would be an absolute miracle. And now, so many miracles were gathered on the same person. This could no longer be called a miracle. It was simply a miracle. If it was in the past, he would have dismissed any of these notes as nonsense and bewitching. He would even say that they were hallucinating. But now, hundreds of people were saying the same thing. And all of them were saying it with great detail. If one person was hallucinating, that would be normal. But now, hundreds of people were saying the same thing. He couldn't say that they were all hallucinating, right? The base chief continued to slowly flip through the notes. Killed thousands of zombies in seconds without moving. Killed thousands of zombies in seconds without even moving a finger. Almost in most of the notes, the most mentioned sentence was, killed thousands of zombies in seconds. He really couldn't imagine what kind of scene that was. He had already seen it for himself just now. The heads of those zombies were indeed as these people said, they had all exploded. If the mysterious expert used weapons such as knives and guns, or fists and feet, he could kill thousands of zombies in seconds. He could barely accept it. But now, he killed thousands of zombies in seconds without moving. This was a bit too ridiculous. But the facts were in front of him, and he had to believe it. And there was one thing he really couldn't figure out. With such powerful strength, why didn't the mysterious expert dare to show up? What was he afraid of? Wasn't it good to be regarded as a hero and a star by everyone? Wasn't it good to enjoy everyone's worship and support? After thinking for a long time, he couldn't think of a reason. He lit a cigarette and looked out the window at the sky that was gradually turning white. He took a deep breath and exhaled a cloud of smoke. Who the hell are you, at the same time? Sure, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly sneezed for no reason. He turned over and wiped his face. Then, the sound slowly sounded again. Chapter 16. While Sure was still sleeping in the house, 50 kilometers to the northwest of the base, there was a dam here. Around the dam, there were tens of thousands of zombies densely packed. To the east of the dam, there was an abandoned residential area. In the residential area, abandoned cars were parked haphazardly in the yard. Almost all the windows in the residential building had no glass. The cold wind blew, and the windows made ghost-like sounds. During the day, there was silence here. Like a dead city. However, every night, this place was densely packed with zombies. Most of them were ordinary zombies. But occasionally, one or two mutated zombies would appear. At this time, on the top of the 32nd floor, a zombie was standing there. His long hair was messy in the wind. In the bloody hole in his chest, his shriveled heart could be seen. His grayish-white eyes actually flashed with a human-like gaze. Obviously, he was more intelligent than ordinary mutated zombies. His gaze crossed 50 kilometers. Using the eastern sky, he looked at the high wall of the base. Tonight, it was he who sent those mutated zombies, with more than 100 zombies, to attack the human base. Once they succeeded, their zombies would have more food. At that time, he also took hundreds of mutated zombies and more than 30,000 ordinary zombies to ambush in the woods not far from the base. Once the base really started fighting, the army would withdraw part of their forces to encircle and suppress the zombies. At that time, he could take these 30,000 zombies to attack the base wall. But he never thought that those zombies who lurked in would fail. He really couldn't figure out, how could they fail? The human body was very fragile. On the other hand, the mutated zombies' bodies were much stronger than that of humans. Those mutated zombies sneaked up on the humans at night. It was reasonable to say that they shouldn't have failed at all. What the hell was going on? Could it be that there were more powerful humans in the base? Those hunters? That was impossible. He had seen those hunters kill zombies before. Although they were stronger than ordinary humans, they weren't that strong. So, what the hell was going on? He thought for a long time. Until he thought of the eastern sky. The sun shyly revealed half of its face. He also couldn't figure out the reason. But in any case, the plan to attack the human base had to be put aside for the time being. The next morning, the entire base was under martial law. All the cadaver teams, patrols, and soldiers were conducting a carpet search of T-zone. This was to prevent any zombies from escaping. In the courtyard of the residential area in T District and in the first 8 buildings, they found a large number of headless zombie corpses. Recalling the scene of the mysterious expert killing the zombies last night, they were all shocked to the extreme. During the investigation, they found that in the room of the family of 3 in Block 9, a mutated zombie's head and upper body were stuck in the wall. When they saw this scene, the patrol members all sucked in a breath of cold air. Just how strong must one be to be able to do this? In their shock, they questioned the family of 3. Did you see the person who saved you? The woman and the little girl shook their heads. The man said, at the time, the room was filled with dust. We only saw a blurry figure. The woman still wanted to say something, but the man stopped her with his gaze. After the patrols left, the woman asked the man, "Don't we need to talk about that bottle of medicine?" The man shook his head. The benefactor who saved us has been hiding in the base for 5 years without exposing his identity. Since he doesn't want anyone to know, of course, we can't spread his secret. The woman suddenly said, "I didn't expect that." The man's eyes were filled with gratitude. If the benefactor doesn't want to be exposed, then we'll let this matter rot in our stomachs. The woman nodded heavily. Okay. The little girl next to her also nodded and said obediently, "Little Yen won't tell anyone either." After Emosher stayed in his room for half a day, he finally calmed down. The system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face upgrade complete. Reward obtained, zombie roar, reward obtained, lookout eye upgraded to blood magic pupil, reward obtained, mutated chameleon gene enhancer, reward obtained, chameleon combat suit. Emosher couldn't help but be overjoyed when he heard this. It was the same feeling he had when he drew 1,000 skins from the lottery when he played the game. He immediately looked at the skill description. Zombie Roar has the effect of deterring ordinary zombies. A roar can repel 100,000 zombies. Awesome! Emosher could only use these 2 words to describe it. At the same time, this zombie roar also reminded him of the giant dragon that appeared in his mind from time to time. A dragon's roar shook all beasts. Could it be that this zombie roar was somehow related to the dragon's roar? Then, he took out the mutated chameleon gene enhancer. After injecting it, he felt that something seemed to have changed in his body. He leaned against the wall. With a thought. The color of his skin changed rapidly. Soon, it turned the same white as the wall. He came to the door again. With a thought, his body turned the same dark red as the door. He had a lot of secrets. With this skill, it would be more convenient for him to do things in the future. Of course, the color of his skin changed, but his clothes didn't. So he took out the chameleon combat suit from his backpack. Chameleon combat suit, fireproof, wear-resistant, elastic material. It can change the same color according to the skin color. Mo sure was overjoyed. What kind of black technology is this? Then, he put on the chameleon combat suit. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary camouflage uniform. But when Mo sure's body turned white, the chameleon combat suit also turned white. Mo sure moved his mind. His right arm turned into a titan dragon claw. His entire right arm instantly became 3 times its original size. And the chameleon combat suit also became thicker. The sleeves were still intact. Mo sure nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, the products of the system must be of high quality. Then, he looked at the skill description of Blood Magic Eyes. Blood Magic Eyes, also known as the Blood Demon's Eyes, after using it, you can see further and see through fog. You can see the corpse aura that ordinary people can't see. Mo sure was puzzled. Corpse aura. Why did it feel like it was going in the direction of fantasy? The system explained frowny face. A part of the blood in a zombie's body will slowly spread in the air at an extremely slow speed. When a large number of zombies gather, the blood that spreads in the air will form corpse aura. Mo sure understood. Your explanation is reasonable. Then, the system's voice sounded again. Content of this upgrade, sign-in failure mechanism. Mo sure nodded. That's good. Previously, he didn't dare to sign in at many unimportant places. After all, he could only sign in once a day. If he failed, it was equivalent to wasting a sign-in opportunity. But now that he could sign in again if he failed, he didn't have to worry about this. Chapter 17. 17 Zombie Hunter Tournament. 10 days later, the martial law was finally lifted. Mo sure could finally come out to take a breather. After feeding the pigs and zombies, he strolled out of the zombie farm as usual. He wanted to find a place to sign in. When he passed by the warehouse of the base, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." Sign in failed. The system replied instantly. But Mo sure just shrugged. After the system was upgraded, he could go to other places to sign in again if he failed to sign in. Soon, Mo sure slowly strolled under the sentry tower. In the name of cleaning, he climbed up the sentry tower. The sentry tower was more than 20 meters tall. When he reached the top of the sentry tower, the soldier who was looking out glanced at Mo sure and ignored him. System, sign in. The system replied instantly. Frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location, sentry tower. Sign in reward, 1 virtual sentry tower. Mo sure was puzzled. Virtual sentry tower? He checked the system backpack with his mind. There was a small translucent sentry tower model in the backpack. He focused his mind on the sentry tower model. Virtual sentry tower. After use, it can be used to guard a radius of 5 kilometers. Mo sure nodded secretly. This virtual sentry tower was very practical. With this, he wouldn't have to be worried if he had to spend the night outside the base in the future. Then, he returned to reality. While wiping the chair, he looked into the distance from time to time. From here, he could see the 2 lines of defense around the base. The nearest was the wall 2 kilometers away. It surrounded the entire base. Further away was the city wall. This city wall was the first line of defense of the base. Mo sure's gaze passed the distant city wall and looked even further away. Of course, with the tall city wall blocking his view, he couldn't see anything. However, right at that moment, his black pupils suddenly turned blood red. Blood demon eyes. The next moment, he saw outside the city wall in the distance. In a certain direction in the northwest, the air was filled with blood-red fog. The blood-red fog was extremely thick, like a fog after a long rain. He felt that the blood-red fog seemed to be brewing something. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He remembered that it was the direction of the dam. Such a dense corpse aura. How many zombies are there? It was said that the mutated zombies came in from the northwest sewer exit 10 days ago. It seemed that if he really wanted to go out in the future, he would have to stay far away from that place. Although he was strong, facing thousands of zombies, he could only run. Coming down from the sentry tower, Emosher's mood was slightly heavy. The thick corpse chi in the northwest made him feel slightly uneasy. The next few days were the same as last time. Wherever Emosher went, he could hear people talking about that mysterious expert. Emosher only smiled and didn't say anything. He still signed in every day. Other than that, he had to carefully and conscientiously feed the pigs and zombies. He didn't care about other people's comments. He just felt a little good in his heart. In the next 6 months, Emosher had increased the range of his telekinesis to a radius of 400 meters through continuous injections of brain cell enhancer. It can control any object under 40 kilograms within this range. It was also in this half a year that everyone in the base had been injected with the evolution agent. More and more people became corpse hunters. Cross-eyed Xiaodou in the corpse farm had also successfully become a corpse hunter and moved out of the corpse farm. The new corpse hunter was a newbie. A girl named Happy. She had delicate features, but she didn't know how to speak. She especially liked to smile. And her smile was extremely infectious. After he arrived, both Emosher and Oldly were smiling more and more. Now there were more than 3,000 corpse hunters in the base. Their overall strength had been greatly increased. At the same time, the first level 5 corpse hunter appeared in the base. Everyone was celebrating. In order to uplift the hearts of the people, and also to motivate these corpse hunters, the higher-ups of the base decided to hold a corpse hunter competition. This made all the corpse hunters in the base extremely excited. Especially those young corpse hunters. Those who obtained a ranking in the competition would not only receive the corresponding rewards, but also be worshipped by the opposite sex. Emosher just smiled and didn't say anything about this. If he participated in the competition, no one else would have anything to do. On this day, the weather was clear. The sun was shining brightly. It was the day of the competition. Emosher wasn't interested in the competition of these corpse hunters. But Oldly wanted to go, and Happy also pulled Emosher and just smiled. Emosher could only shake his head helplessly. "Alright, I'm defeated by your smile." The 3 of them left the corpse farm and went straight to the training ground. When they arrived at the training ground, there were already mountains of people. The huge training ground was already packed with spectators. In the apocalypse, this was a rare sight. Originally, the 3 of them couldn't squeeze in at all. But when the surrounding people saw that they were from the corpse farm, they all covered their noses and retreated to the sides. This allowed them to walk in easily. At this time, 10 arenas had been built in the center of the training ground. On each arena, there were 2 corpse hunters fighting in pairs. Good. Damn, this move is amazing. That corpse hunter named Yang Kong is simply a big dark horse. The audience kept cheering for these corpse hunters or applauding. The sound was deafening. Crippled Oldly watched with great interest. He said, "Isn't it like the martial arts movies from before?" Happy looked like a curious baby. He stared at the competition on the arena. From time to time, he would smile brightly. Emosher yawned. He felt a little bored. In the eyes of others, it was a fight between experts. In his eyes, it was a fight between rookies. What was there to see? After 3 days of fighting, the top 3 rankers from level 1 to level 4 were finally determined from these 3,300 hunters. As for the level 5 corpse hunter, there was only one in the entire base, so there was naturally nothing to compare. What surprised Mo sure was that the cross-eyed Little Bean actually got 3rd place in the level 2 group. Crippled Old Lee sighed and said, "Little Bean is promising." Mo sure didn't comment. At this time, the leader of the corpse farm happened to walk over. His face was full of excitement, so excited that his neck was red. When he saw Mo sure and the other 2, he smiled and said, "The 3 of you, learn from Little Bean. We're all from the corpse farm, why is the gap so big?" Old Lee quickly nodded. Yes, the leader is right." Mo sure smiled and said, "Leader, I remember that you didn't succeed in strengthening either." The leader glared at Mo sure. "You don't have to say that." Then, he turned around and left angrily. Old Lee shook his head helplessly. "Little Mo, can't you talk less about the leader? The leader has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. It's not good for you to be like this." Mo sure smiled and said, "I also have a sharp tongue." As for whether he was a soft heart, it was hard to say. In fact, he was just joking with the leader. This was also one of his daily pleasures. At this time, the competition had already ended. The leader of the base walked into the arena with a smile. After giving out awards to all the corpse hunters who had won the rankings, the leader said, "Next, it will be our highlight." Everyone was stunned. The competition had already ended, and the awards had already been given out. Why was there still a highlight? The leader waited for everyone to quiet down and said with a smile, "Next, I will formally introduce the mysterious powerhouse of our base to everyone." Wow! When the people present heard the words, "mysterious powerhouse," there was an uproar. Was that person finally going to show up? Mo sure was slightly stunned. Was he exposed? Chapter 18. At the end of the competition, the base chief walked up to the center of the arena. He was a man in his 50s with white hair. He had a kind smile on his face. He always gave people a very kind feeling. Before the apocalypse, he was a major general in the army. From the establishment to the operation of the entire base, he took credit for it. It could be said that without him, there would be no base today. Therefore, when the base chief went up to the stage, there was a burst of cheers from the audience. The chief waited for the cheers and applause to die down before he said with a smile, "I believe that everyone has gained a lot from this competition. Especially for the hunters who got the ranking. Congratulations. You are the hope of the base, the hope of the continuation of human civilization. I hope that you can be brave enough to challenge. Only by daring to challenge can you become stronger." Everyone nodded. The words of the base chief were always so convincing. The chief then changed the topic. He said, "Now, as the winners, you will have the chance to challenge the mysterious powerhouse." Wow! As soon as he said that, there was an uproar. The mysterious powerhouse. Is he going to appear? Oh my God, he's finally going to appear. It's been 4 years. From the first time he appeared in the gym, I've been looking forward to his appearance. I can finally see him today. He killed the mutated zombies in the laboratory and then killed thousands of zombies with one move. I've been looking forward to seeing him. Today, I can finally fulfill my wish. Get out of my way, don't stop me. I want to worship him, worship him. Crippled Old Lee next to Mo sure shook his head and sighed. It's been 4 years, he's finally going to appear. On the other side, Happy couldn't say anything. However, the burning gaze in her eyes vividly expressed her excitement. Mo sure was a little confused. Was he going to be exposed? He had hidden it very well. Resources were scarce in the apocalypse. The base's cameras were basically installed in the laboratory and on the wall of the first line of defense. There were few cameras in other places. How could he be discovered like this? Everyone raised their heads in anticipation. The base chief swept his gaze across everyone. Finally, he slowly looked at Immortal. With an expectant look on his face, he said, "Now, let's welcome the mysterious powerhouse." Immortal sighed secretly. Forget it. Since he couldn't hide, he wouldn't pretend. It was a showdown. Thinking of this, Immortal's body moved slightly. He planned to go on stage. But at this moment, cries of surprise came from not far away. "Look, that person, how is this possible? Unbelievable, unbelievable." Immortal looked at these people in confusion. What kind of nonsense are these people talking about? Then, he followed their gazes. He turned his head and looked behind him. Behind him was a beautiful woman with a ponytail. It actually slowly rose into the air. Without any external force, she actually floated into the air. When she was 5 meters above the ground, she stopped rising. Then, he slowly floated to the arena. Around the arena, everyone who saw this scene was extremely shocked. Old Lee was so surprised that he couldn't stop drooling. It shone brightly under the sunlight, like a string of crystals. By the side, Happy also widened his beautiful eyes. His eyes were filled with disbelief. When Immortal saw the ponytailed woman floating in the air, he suddenly understood. So he was a psychic. Then he shook his head slightly. In fact, he had tried to use his psychokinesis to float and fly. But this kind of flying method was extremely slow, not as fast as walking. The height was only a few meters. And it also consumed a lot of psychokinesis. Other than showing off, there was no other practical purpose. But at this time, he was not exposed, so he was relieved. But he didn't expect that someone would dare to pretend to be him. In the air, the ponytailed woman floated above the arena. She slowly landed. Like a fairy from the 9th heaven descending to the mortal world. After landing, her eyelids drooped. Like a fairy, she looked down at all the living beings below the arena. All the living beings clicked their tongues in amazement. This is the mysterious powerhouse. So it's a woman. So beautiful. The chief said with a smile. This is the mysterious powerhouse I was talking about. As for how strong she is, you zombie hunters who just got a ranking will know after you try. The zombie hunters who got a ranking all looked at each other. No one dared to go up. Who dared to go up? An existence that could kill thousands of zombies with one move. Would they dare to challenge? Wouldn't that be asking for humiliation? Seeing that no one dared to challenge, the ponytailed woman had a disdainful smile on her face. She said to the chief next to her. "Chief, why don't we forget about it?" At this time, a zombie hunter named Yang Kong looked at the ponytailed woman with a disdainful expression. He frowned slightly. He was the man who was saved by Immortal. Because he took Immortal's recovery potion, he grew very fast after becoming a zombie hunter. In just half a year, he had grown to a level 4 zombie hunter. He was regarded as a genius with great talent. When he was kicked a few times by the mutated zombie and his hands and feet were broken, his consciousness was about to blur. But he could still barely see the mysterious powerhouse who saved his family. It was definitely not a woman. And later, his wife and daughter also said that the voice of the mysterious powerhouse was obviously a man. At this time, this woman ran out and pretended to be the mysterious powerhouse. This made him somewhat puzzled and somewhat indignant. She solved the zombie crisis twice and saved 100,000 people in the entire base twice. Such a contribution was definitely greater than the sky. Now this woman wanted to take the credit of the mysterious powerhouse. How could he allow such a thing to happen? Thinking of this, Yang Kong stepped forward. "Let me try." Seeing this, the ponytailed woman sneered. "You alone?" Then, he pointed his finger at the 12 ranked hunters, including Yang Kong, through the air. She said calmly. "Come together." His arrogance was evident in his every movement. Yang Kong was already unhappy with the ponytailed woman. At this time, seeing her arrogant behavior, he was even more unhappy. With a leap, he jumped into the ring. The other 11 hunters looked at each other one by one. Then they followed to the ring. They didn't dare to challenge this mysterious powerhouse. The mysterious powerhouse killed thousands of zombies in seconds without even moving a finger. How could they deal with it? But at this time, Yang Kong had already gone up. If they didn't go up, wouldn't they be too cowardly? And even if they lost to the mysterious powerhouse, it wouldn't be shameful. The crowd below the ring saw the dozen or so hunters coming to the ring. One by one, they were interested. I can finally see the mysterious powerhouse in action with my own eyes. Mo was also slightly interested. Since she dared to pretend to be him, she must have some ability. And she knew that the real mysterious powerhouse was hiding in the base. And she dared to pretend to be him in front of so many people. There must be something wrong. The ponytailed woman saw the 12 hunters coming to the ring. Her eyes were full of disdain. She said calmly, "I'll let you go first." Before her voice died away, Yang Kong had already roared. He strode toward the ponytailed woman. Seeing this, the rest of the people frowned slightly. Yang Kong was usually very calm. Why couldn't he suppress his anger when he saw a woman today? After all, this was not an ordinary woman. This was the mysterious powerhouse. But since Yang Kong had already gone up, they naturally couldn't back down. They said one after another, "Sorry." Then the dozen or so people jumped toward the ponytailed woman at the same time. The ponytailed woman smiled faintly. In an instant, 12 flying knives appeared in her sleeves. However, these 12 flying knives didn't shoot out. Instead, they suddenly floated out of thin air. Then, it circled around her body and kept flying. Whoosh 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 whoosh, the 12 flying knives formed a shield of light around her body. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. The mysterious powerhouse's means are indeed mysterious and unpredictable. Could this be the psychokinesis mentioned in novels? Chapter 19. The 12 flying daggers circled around Sister Ponytail. The knife light was cold, and the cold wind was rustling. It looked very gorgeous. The dozen or so corpse hunters who had won the ranking suddenly stopped rushing forward. No one dared to get closer. What a joke, Miss Ponytail was surrounded by the knife light. Wouldn't it be suicide to rush in? When Mo saw this, his eyes lit up. Why didn't he think of this move before? With the strength of his telekinesis, he would be 100 times more handsome than Miss Ponytail if he used this move. At this moment, Yang Kong frowned. He pulled out a military knife from his waist. Then he gritted his teeth and rushed toward Miss Ponytail. Although Miss Ponytail's knife light was powerful and aggressive. But how could he allow others to take the credit of the mysterious powerhouse? Even if he was seriously injured, he would expose this woman. When the other corpse hunters saw this, they also pulled out their weapons. There were knives, swords, and axes. Miss Ponytail snorted coldly. With a thought. The 12 flying knives flew toward Yang Kong first. Whoosh 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 whoosh, like 12 locusts, they swept past Yang Kang's body in an instant. 12 bloody wounds appeared on Yang Kang's body. In particular, there was a bloody wound that was less than 2 centimeters away from his neck. If it was a little higher, he would probably be lying down at this time. Whoosh 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 whoosh, the 12 flying knives continued to sweep toward the other people. The rest of the corpse hunters also had bloody wounds on their bodies. In just 10 seconds, the 12 people's clothes were all torn. Their upper bodies were covered with blood-red wounds. They couldn't move forward anymore. Yang Kong frowned. Everyone else's faces were deathly pale. They didn't dare to move forward even a step. Miss Ponytail shook her head in disdain. With a thought, the 12 flying knives were taken back. She said to the chief next to her, "Chief, I said earlier that they are no match for her." When the audience saw this, they applauded thunderously. They all cheered. The mysterious powerhouse is really powerful. I believe that this is only the tip of the iceberg of her strength. Don't talk. You're disturbing my worship. Old Lee, who was beside Mo Sure, wiped off his saliva. He said, "Hey, little Mo. Is the mysterious expert powerful?" Mo Sure was noncommittal. Happy's eyes were filled with envy and admiration. In the arena, the base chief smiled and said, "That's right. Is there anyone else who wants to try?" Then, his gaze swept across the faces of the people below the ring. Below the arena, there was no sound. Under such circumstances, who would dare to go up? Sister Ponytail had already retracted her throwing knife. His face was full of disdain. Seeing that no one dared to challenge him again, he chuckled twice and said, "Who else?" Below the stage, there was silence. No one dared to respond, let alone challenge him. Seeing that no one spoke, the base chief introduced with a smile. This mysterious expert is not the hunter that everyone guessed. But psychokinesis. Whoosh, the audience was in an uproar. He really is a psychic. Oh my god, psychokinesis actually exists in the world. I've long said that the mysterious expert must have some kind of psychokinesis ability. Otherwise, how could he kill thousands of zombies in an instant without even moving his fingers? The base chief continued, "She had been injected with an enhancer a long time ago. After the injection, her body did not become stronger. But her brain was strengthened to the point that it was far beyond the reach of ordinary people. She can control objects out of thin air. We call this kind of person psychokinesis. According to the data from the laboratory, as long as you have a second injection of the enhancer, there is a certain chance that you can become psychokinesis. Although the probability is very small, I think we should try. Therefore, in the next 6 months, the base will do our best to let everyone undergo the second round of injections. I hope that there will be others who can become psychokinesis." When he said that, everyone below the stage was excited. Everyone could become psychokinesis. He wanted to become a psychic like the mysterious master. How could they not be excited? Sister Ponytail seemed to be a little impatient at that moment. "Sir, there is no one in the base who can fight. I'll go back first." As she said that, she did not wait for the base chief to answer. She held her head high and puffed out her chest. She strode down the stage and left the training ground as if no one was around. Everyone only saw the ponytail behind her swaying vigorously. On the stage, Yang Kong frowned. He wanted to expose that woman in front of everyone. But he had no evidence to prove it. Occasionally, there would be others who were dissatisfied. Although this mysterious expert was strong, she was too arrogant. But most people were still full of admiration for her. In their opinion, the strong had their own personalities. Her strength had already reached such a heaven-defying level. Wasn't it normal to be arrogant? Mo Sure looked at the woman's back as she strode away with her ponytail swaying. He was a little unhappy in his heart. This woman seemed to have come specifically to ruin his reputation. No matter how strong a person was, she would not mindlessly say something like, "There is no one who can fight," in front of everyone. She was not a brainless villain. Thinking of this, Mo Sure's psychokinesis quietly spread out. It covered Miss Ponytail, who had already walked 300 meters away. Miss Ponytail, who was holding her head high and swinging her ponytail. Suddenly, her expression froze. In the next moment, her expression changed drastically. She only felt as if there was a terrifying pressure pressing down on her. Like a mountain, like a mountain. It was as if she was facing a tsunami. Or as if she was facing a sandstorm. Under this vast and huge pressure, her psychokinesis almost collapsed in an instant. Her face was as pale as paper. Cold sweat poured down from her forehead. Her entire body was trembling involuntarily. At this time, the ponytail was no longer swinging. Instead, it was trembling with her body. In front of this vast sea of psychokinesis that was as bright as the sun. Her psychokinesis was just a drop in the ocean, a lonely firefly. Under this terrifying pressure, she had an impulse. She immediately wanted to turn around and confess to everyone. However, when she wanted to move, she found that she was actually suppressed by that psychokinesis. She couldn't even move a step. This made her look even more shocked. Her psychokinesis could only control objects that were less than 10 kilograms. However, this enormous and earth-shattering power of telekinesis could even suppress her body. How strong was this psychokinesis? A few seconds later, that psychokinesis was instantly withdrawn. Miss Ponytail felt the pressure on her body suddenly lighten. She turned her head and looked at the training ground with some fear. However, there were tens of thousands of people around the training ground. She couldn't see who it was at all. In her fear, she wanted to turn around immediately. Confess to everyone that she was just pretending to be a mysterious strong man. But when her gaze fell on the arena, the base chief who was speaking with confidence, she hesitated again. Finally, she gritted her teeth and turned around to leave. Chapter 20. The reason why Immortal used his psychokinesis to warn the woman. Firstly, it was to warn the woman. You can pretend to be me, but don't ruin my reputation. Secondly, it was to test his psychokinesis. Ever since he had psychokinesis, Immortal had always been alone. There was no other reference. Today, he finally had a reference. Naturally, he had to test how strong his psychokinesis was. However, when he tried, it was lonely. Immortal felt that using psychokinesis to suppress this woman was as easy as suppressing an ordinary person. Naturally, he couldn't test how strong his psychokinesis was. Moreover, his psychokinesis couldn't suppress the woman to the point where she couldn't move at all. But perhaps the woman was terrified to the extreme. He only used his psychokinesis to casually suppress her. That woman couldn't even take a step forward. Sigh, he shook his head. He sighed gloomily. Being invincible was really lonely. Seeing Immortal sigh, Oldly patted him on the shoulder. Don't be discouraged. Maybe the next time you get an injection, you can also become a psychokinesis. When the time comes, you have to learn from the mysterious powerhouse. Immortal smiled as if he was joking. Why can't she learn from me? Crippled Oldly hurriedly looked around. He advised in a low voice. Little Mo, you can't say such things. If you anger that mysterious powerhouse, you'll be in big trouble. Half an hour later, everyone slowly dispersed while discussing the mysterious powerhouse. Immortal, Oldly, and Happy also returned to the corpse farm. At the same time, in the base chief's office. The base chief said to Miss Ponytail, "You acted well just now." Miss Ponytail shook her head. She said, "Chief, I don't want to act anymore." The chief obviously didn't expect this. Didn't we agree before? You have to act until the mysterious powerhouse is forced out. Miss Ponytail shook her head and asked. Chief, why do you have to force him out? The chief laughed bitterly. As the chief, I have to consider everything from the chief's perspective. That mysterious powerhouse has such powerful strength, but he hasn't shown himself. It's a potential threat to the entire base. So I have to force him out and talk to him. I have to make sure he means no harm. Miss Ponytail shook her head. If he didn't have any ill intentions, wouldn't our actions have angered him? If he had any ill intentions, he would have done it long ago. There's no need to hide in the base for 5 years. The bureau chief laughed bitterly again. What you said is all speculation. As the chief of the base, I want to see the truth. After that, the base chief seemed to be a little tired. He leaned back in his chair and said slowly, I'm responsible for the safety of 100,000 people in the base. Sister Ponytail felt a little heartache when she saw this. He said, "Uncle, I understand." But then he shook his head. "But I can't continue acting." "Why?" The base chief frowned slightly. The ponytailed girl said, "Just now, the mysterious expert warned me." Hearing this, the base chief immediately leaned forward. He was pleasantly surprised. "You saw him?" The ponytail girl shook her head and said, "I can sense that he was at the training ground at that time." "He didn't appear." "But at that time, I was already more than 300 meters away from the training ground, but he used his psychokinesis to suppress me so that I couldn't move at all. My psychokinesis is nothing compared to his." The base chief was surprised. "In that case, the range of his psychokinesis is at least 300 meters in radius. In other words, he's a level 3 psychokinesis." The ponytail girl nodded, then shook her head. "I'm sure that it's far more than 300 meters. He must be an existence that far surpasses level 3 psychokinesis." The base chief was even more surprised when he heard this. According to the data analysis in the laboratory, after being injected with the enhancer, some people's bodies would be strengthened and become zombie hunters. Very few people's brains would be strengthened and become psychokinesis. But it was impossible for someone to be both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis. But from the mysterious expert's performance, he obviously did it. He was both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis. This made the base chief fall into deep thought. How on earth did he do it? If the mysterious expert shared his method with everyone, would there be others who could become both a zombie hunter and a psychokinesis like him? Thinking of this, he raised his head. He said seriously, "You have to keep up the act." "Uncle, the ponytail girl still wanted to say something, but the base chief waved his hand and interrupted her. "We have to force him out. I have to have a good talk with him. On behalf of 100,000 people in the base, I beg you." The base chief said solemnly. The ponytail girl opened her mouth. In the end, she couldn't refuse. "Then, okay. But if the mysterious expert really shows up, please help me explain it clearly." The base chief smiled again. He said, "Of course. Xiao Wei, are you still worried about your uncle?" So in the following days, the ponytail girl frequently went to various occasions as the mysterious expert. She became the star of the entire base. Most of the people in the base worshipped her. Wherever she went, there would be cheers and applause. She would occasionally show her strength. This made those people even more crazy. Mo sure didn't care. Ever since he gave the ponytail girl a small warning that day, he didn't make a move again. Since this woman wanted to act, then let her act. And with her as a shield, the people in the base would no longer guess who the mysterious expert was. This was a good thing for him. Then, the days returned to normal. Mo sure still signed in, raised pigs, and fed zombies every day. Happy was a newbie, so she was always not very nimble when doing work. The base chief asked Mo sure to take care of Happy. Mo sure often went to help her. She would always smile gratefully for Mo sure's help. Looking at her bright and innocent smile, Mo sure often felt that it was a pity. Such a smiling girl actually didn't know how to speak. As for the base, after the martial arts competition, a second round of injections was carried out. No one in the zombie farm became a psychokinesis again. This made the base chief feel disappointed for a long time. And in the entire base, this round of injections produced 13 psychokinesis. Now there were more than 3,000 zombie hunters in the base, and 13 psychokinesis. It could be said that they had a strong army. So the base chief ordered these zombie hunters and psychokinesis to clean up the zombies around the base. With the cooperation of the powerful zombie hunters and psychokinesis, this team of more than 3,000 people could be said to be invincible. Just like this, time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years had passed. Through these 5 years of continuous strengthening, Mo Shi's telekinesis could reach a range of 500 meters. He could control objects within 50 kilograms. According to the base's classification of psychokinesis, he had already reached level 5 psychokinesis. Chapter 21. 5 years. The first level 7 zombie hunter had appeared in the base. At the same time, the base laboratory conducted a lot of research on psychokinesis. They divided psychokinesis into levels according to the range of telekinesis. Every 100 meters increase in telekinesis range was considered a level increase. The strongest psychokinesis in the base was that Miss Ponytail. Her telekinesis could already spread out more than 200 meters. That was level 2 psychokinesis. More than 3,000 zombie hunters in the base formed a zombie hunter group. Miss Ponytail became the group leader as everyone expected. And ever since she was warned by Mo Shi, she didn't do anything out of line. Instead, she worked hard to be a good group leader. As for Mo Shi, through the continuous injection of cell enhancers for the past 5 years, his telekinesis had reached a radius of 500 meters. He could control objects under 50 kilograms. Obviously, he was already level 5 psychokinesis. He was both the ceiling of the zombie hunters and the number 1 in psychokinesis. This feeling made Mo Shi very happy. However, Mo Shi vaguely felt that his body had been strengthened to the peak after 5 years. Recently, he always felt that he could break through at any time. This made him quite happy. On this day, after Mo Shi finished feeding the zombies, he strolled out of the zombie farm again. When he passed by the laboratory, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." The system, like a girlfriend in love, replied instantly, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, laboratory. Sign in reward, X2 virus. Mo Shi was slightly puzzled. He had never signed in the X2 virus before. What was the use of this thing? With a thought, he checked the system backpack. He saw that in the system backpack, there was already a gun-type syringe. On the syringe, there was a small transparent test tube-like bottle. In the small bottle, there was a blood-red liquid. X2 virus, a mutated strain of virus X. After injection, it can strengthen the host's cells and help the host break through their limits. Hearing this, Mo Shi was ecstatic. He was finally going to break through. 7 years ago, he had already become a level 10 zombie hunter. Now, after 7 years, the other zombie hunters were about to catch up. This made him a little depressed. And now, he was finally about to break through again. He quickly returned to the corpse farm. He locked himself in his room. Then, he took out a syringe. Although it wasn't the first time he had injected it, this time he was so excited that his arm trembled slightly. He took a few deep breaths. After calming down a little, he injected the blood-red X2 virus into his left arm. Meanwhile, a rare phenomenon appeared in his mind once again. Just like the first injection. A gigantic dragon phantom that was several hundred meters long flapped its gigantic wings as it flew across the sky. However, this time, the dragon's shadow seemed to be more solid than before. Roar, a dragon's roar shook all the beasts. Mo Shi could feel that the terrifying long way was pressing down on him so much that he didn't even dare to raise his head. The phantom dragon circled twice in the air. In the next moment, he suddenly retracted his wings. Like a meteorite, it swooped down towards him. Mo Shi only felt that the sky seemed to have darkened a lot under the shadow of the giant dragon. The giant dragon's cave-like mouth opened and instantly swallowed Mo Shi. In the next moment, Mo Shi suddenly quivered. He opened his eyes. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. His hands and feet were cold. Although it wasn't the first time he had seen such a phenomenon. Every time, it was as if he had experienced it personally. Gulp. He swallowed his saliva. Mo Shi smiled bitterly. Did he have to make such a big commotion every time? Could he still break through happily? At this moment, he felt that his body was rapidly heating up and gradually becoming hot. Every cell in his body was growing wildly like weeds after a heavy rain. Every blood vessel in his body seemed to be alive. It continued to extend. Every muscle was filled with explosive strength. Every bone in his body was making cracking sounds. Sher's eyes were filled with excitement. He was about to break through. Sure enough, in just 5 minutes. His entire body had undergone a qualitative change. His slightly thin body actually looked a little sturdy at this moment. He felt that every move of his would carry an incomparably powerful force. He had to carefully adapt to this newly increased strength. Otherwise, he would accidentally crush the cup and collapse the chair. At this moment, the system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face breaking through the limit, unlocking the Titan Dragon Claw on the left arm. Before he could finish his sentence, his left arm began to change. Just like his right arm before, it became 3 times thicker. It also grew black scales the size of a fingernail. His left hand also turned into a sharp dragon claw. Sher was delighted. Finally, the dragon claw on his left arm was unlocked. If both arms were dragon claws, how powerful would that be? However, the changes in his body didn't stop. The skin on his right hand quickly protruded. The bones in his hand grew rapidly. When the bones pierced the skin, he was surprised to find that the bones were actually black. It was as if they were made of steel. Moreover, the black bones continued to grow longer. A moment later, it became a 3-meter-long black spear that looked like a javelin. The spear was completely black and emitted a black metallic luster. The tip of the spear was extremely sharp. It seemed to be able to easily pierce through iron and stone. After the black spear was formed, it left his hand bone. It became an independent existence. He could throw the spear out at any time. Sher held the cold spear, but he felt as if his mind was connected. After all, this was flesh that fell from his body, bones. System, what is this? The system replied instantly, frowny face sky-killing dragon spear. After a zombie hunter broke through the limit, he evolved into a hunter. Every hunter can condense a bone spur from their right hand. During battle, the bone spur can be released silently and can pierce through iron and stone. The host has the Titan Dragon gene, so what was born was not a bone spur, but a sky-killing dragon spear. Sher heard this explanation and felt very comfortable. Sky-killing dragon spear, just by hearing this name, it was very Chinibu. With a thought, the sky-killing dragon spear began to shrink rapidly and finally merged into his right hand. The next moment, his right hand changed again. The skin on his right hand squirmed rapidly, as if something was going to come out. After a while, his right arm slowly extended. It was about 3 meters long. His right hand slowly turned into a sharp axe blade. The axe blade was more than 2 meters wide. A cold light flashed on it, terrifying one's soul. The system appeared at the right time and explained, frowny face. After a zombie hunter breaks through and becomes a hunter, a part of the genes in their body will mutate. Other than the bone spur, they can also evolve into a weapon called a genetic weapon. Different genetic weapons have different powers. Sher heard this and was overjoyed. It turned out that after breaking through and becoming a hunter, he would obtain such a powerful ability. No wonder it was so difficult to break through and become a hunter. With a thought, his right arm quickly returned to its original state. At this moment, his attributes suddenly appeared in his mind. Name, Sher, Level 1 Hunter, Level 5 Psychokinesis, Evolution Path, Titan Dragon. His attributes interface was not as long as the main characters of other novels he read before. It made people feel that it was just a word count. His attributes interface was simple and clear. After a while, after calming down his excitement, Sher took out a dark green potion from his backpack. Once again, he injected it into his left arm. Chapter 22. Sure had just broken through when he took out another syringe. He injected it into his left arm. This was the Titan Dragon gene enhancer that he had saved up previously. 7 years ago, his body had already reached its limit. Injecting the Titan Dragon gene enhancer was no longer effective. But after he signed in, he would still often receive the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. So he stored these extra enhancers. About 100 days a year, he could sign in the Titan Dragon gene enhancer. In 7 years, he had saved up more than 700 of them. In addition to his personal warehouse, his system backpack was also filled to the brim. Soon, this enhancer was injected. He could feel some kind of change in his body. Although this change wasn't as big as before, it still proved that this gene enhancer was still effective. He immediately took out a second syringe. Next, the third, fourth, fifth, more than an hour later, he injected all the more than 50 gene enhancers in his system backpack. Then, he made a trip to the warehouse. He moved the gene enhancers back from his personal warehouse. He continued to inject. For more than half a day, Sure ran back and forth to the warehouse 10 times. Finally, he moved all the gene enhancers back and injected them into his body. After he injected the last gene enhancer, his body once again felt that boiling hot feeling. Sure was secretly delighted. This was a sign that he was about to level up. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, his body temperature slowly dropped. But the feeling of being full of power in his body slowly rose. At this moment, Sure's attribute interface appeared in his mind again. Name, Sure, Level 2 Hunter, Level 5 Psychokinesis, Evolution Path, Titan Dragon. Phew, Sure let out a long breath. He was a Level 2 Hunter. He was finally a lot ahead of the hunters in the base. In the past 7 years, his level had been stagnant. Seeing that Level 5, Level 6, and even Level 7 hunters had appeared in the base, he was naturally anxious. If he had the sign-in system, he would still be caught up by these people. That would be King awkward. Fortunately, he had finally broken through. And in one day, he had leveled up twice. He was a Level 2 hunter and a Level 5 psychokinesis. Even if there were more than 3,000 hunters and 13 psychics in the base, they would not be enough to deal with him. One move was enough to suppress him. However, Sure still did not intend to reveal his true strength. He had a feeling that someone in the base was trying to force him to show himself. He wasn't afraid, he just found it troublesome. He was signing in at the zombie farm every day, feeding the pigs and zombies, living a carefree life. There was no need to stir up so much trouble. Furthermore, his blood demon eyes would often observe that the northwest was filled with corpse chi. He didn't know how many zombies were there. According to the current style of the base, if they were exposed, they would definitely send him there to clean up the zombies. What a joke, it was so dangerous outside. Unless he became invincible, he wouldn't go out. However, 9 out of 10 things in the world did not go as one wished. He didn't want to go out, but God didn't let him. On this day, the leader of the corpse farm called Sure, oldly, and happy to his office. He said, "The hunters have already cleaned up most of the zombies around the base. There are tens of thousands of zombies gathered at the dam in the northwest. The leader of the base has given the order to go there tomorrow to encircle and eliminate the zombies. You guys should go as well." The three of them looked at each other when they heard this. Sure laughed dryly and said, "Leader, encircling and eliminating the zombies is a matter for the hunters and psychokinesis. Why should we blindly get involved?" The leader glared at Sure. "The lab wants to capture some fresh zombie samples, but I'm afraid that we don't have enough manpower. They want us to send a few people over to help." Sure and happy, "You two can go." Sure smiled bitterly in his heart when he heard this. What he was afraid of really happened. And this time, they were going to the dam filled with corpse chi. He didn't know what dangers were hidden there. The leader said again, "Don't worry, you're just going to put in some effort. There's no need for you to fight the zombies. Besides, with your small physiques, you'll just be sending yourselves to your deaths if you fight the zombies. Mosher shook his head in resignation. Leader, if I don't come back this time, don't raise your head when you go to the toilet at night. The leader glared at Mosher and scolded, get lost, go feed your pigs. Don't be so rude. Mosher chuckled and was about to leave. At that moment, the leader seemed to have suddenly remembered something. He called out to Mosher. He sized Mosher up from head to toe and asked, what's the matter? Mosher, you've been here for 8 or 9 years, right? Mosher didn't know what the leader meant, so he answered, 10 years. The leader was puzzled. It's been 10 years, and I've aged a lot. Old Lee's back is a little hunched, and Happy has grown into a woman in her 20s. Why don't you look the same? You still look like you're in your 20s. Mosher touched his face and said, maybe it's because I took good care of myself. The leader waved his hand and scolded, get lost, you're always so rude. The next morning, Mosher had just woken up. The leader had already come to the zombie farm to hurry them up. Mosher and Happy hurriedly packed up and were about to walk out of the zombie farm. Old Lee sent them to the door and said to Mosher and Happy, don't worry, I'll take good care of your zombies. Mosher was a little speechless when he heard that. Old Lee wanted to send them to the entrance of the laboratory. But the leader thought that his legs were not agile enough, so he waved his hand and said, all right, Old Lee, I gave you a balloon and you want to be. At this point, he realized that Happy was beside him. He didn't say the rest of his words. Of course, Mosher and Old Lee had already imagined it. Then, Mosher and Happy arrived at the entrance of the laboratory. Before they left, the leader pulled a laboratory researcher to the side. He nodded and bowed, young man, please take good care of the 2 people in the zombie farm. They're not very smart, and they've never left the base. Please. The researcher waved his hand impatiently, all right, I got it. These words were naturally heard by Mosher. His heart warmed slightly. Although the leader often scolded them. But just as Old Lee said, he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. 8:30 in the morning. Mosher and Happy followed the 5 researchers in the laboratory and passed through the second line of defense of the base. They passed through a large wheat field and arrived at the first line of defense. The more than 3,000 zombie hunters and 13 psychokinesis also arrived one after another. 9 o'clock sharp. The iron gate on the city wall slowly opened. A ray of sunlight fell at Mosher's feet. Then, the ray of sunlight slowly expanded. In the end, it enveloped a large number of zombie hunters nearby. Phew, Mosher looked at the blue sky outside the gate and let out a breath of turbid air. It had been 10 years, and he was finally going to step out of the base for the first time. Chapter 23. Early in the morning. It was accompanied by creaking sounds. The gate of the base's city wall slowly opened. This city wall was built in ancient times. 1,000 years ago, it was used to resist the invasion of foreign races. Now, it protected people from the invasion of zombies. The ancestors who built the city wall 1,000 years ago would never have thought that the city wall they built would one day resist not foreign races but zombies. Mosher and Happy slowly walked out of the gate with more than 3,000 zombie hunters. Happy was like a curious baby. Like a child, he looked around and looked around. He explored this unfamiliar world. Mosher also looked outside. Outside the city wall, there was an empty area that had been cleared out, surrounding the entire base. This was to have a better view. If zombies appeared in the open area, they would be able to discover them earlier. The width of this open area was about 1 kilometer. After walking out of this 1 kilometer open area, they entered the lush wilderness. Although it was called the wilderness, it was actually an abandoned city. There had been no traces of humans for more than 10 years, and plants had already occupied this place. Even the weeds on the former road were now half the height of a person. From time to time, there would be abandoned cars on the road, parked in disorder. Some of the cars even had grass growing in them. The residential areas, shopping malls, and amusement parks on both sides of the road were now covered in green grass. From a distance, this was a completely green world. They left the city. They walked straight along a road. In the past few years, the zombie hunters had become stronger and stronger. They had already killed all the zombies nearby. There was no danger here at the moment. Therefore, these zombie hunters and psychokinesis were all talking and laughing. The laboratory researchers around Immortal were all very nervous because it was their first time leaving the base. Immortal, on the other hand, was calm. Although he had always been a coward. Since he was out, he would face it calmly. Anyway, with his current strength, although he was not invincible in the world, he was definitely a top-notch expert. Taking 10,000 steps back, he could now cross 100 meters with one step. With this speed, even if he could not win, he could always run away. Therefore, he had nothing to worry about. In the afternoon, they finally arrived at their destination. In front of them was a bridge that spanned the valley. The bridge had long been broken. It was like an old man in his twilight years, full of vicissitudes, standing in the wilderness. Below the bridge was the dam. Looking down from the bridge, one could vaguely see it. Thousands of zombies were wandering around the dam like wandering ghosts. When the hunters saw the zombies, they were all very excited. He rubbed his palms together. Finally, there's work to do. I haven't killed zombies for dozens of days. My hands are itching. Immortal frowned when he saw the zombies. He had used the blood demon's eye to see it. Although there were thousands of zombies here, it was obviously not enough for the zombie aura to fill the air. But now, the top of the dam was shrouded in blood-red corpse chi. The density of the corpse aura was like the thick fog after a long rain. There was definitely something fishy about this place. His pupils turned blood-red once again. The corpse chi was still lingering around the dam, as if it was going to cover the sky. He withdrew the blood demon's eye, feeling slightly uneasy. The hunters had left the road and were heading towards the dam. He said to the zombie hunter next to him, "It's best if we don't go down." The hunter was a girl in her 20s. But she had short, steel-like hair. Seeing that the hunters had gone down, there was a clear desire in her eyes. She said impatiently to Immortal, "As a man, aren't you too cowardly? If it wasn't to protect you, I would have gone down to kill the zombies. Now, when we go down, the zombies will have been cleaned up by them. Don't dawdle, let's go." Immortal didn't say anything more. He walked down with them. When they were halfway down the slope, there were already roars and shouts of killing below. Those hunters killed the zombies as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. After killing the zombies, many of the hunters kicked the zombies' bodies directly into the dam. Plop, plop, in the dam, waves of blood that were as tall as a person kept splashing up. After more than 10 minutes, the entire water surface had turned blood-red. When Immortal and the others came to the dam, there were already thousands of zombie corpses on the water surface, bobbing up and down in the bloody water. Immortal and the others walked forward slowly. The surroundings were filled with the smell of blood and corpses. The researchers all felt that their legs were weak. Even if they were used to seeing zombies, in the face of such a hellish scene, they were already scared out of their wits. Happy couldn't help but hide behind Immortal and grab Immortal's arm tightly. Immortal also frowned slightly. Then, he patted Happy's arm gently to comfort him. The short-haired female corpse hunter next to him kept sighing. From time to time, she complained, "If it wasn't for you, I would have killed countless zombies by now." Immortal just smiled faintly and didn't say anything. After more than 20 minutes, the zombies were almost cleaned up. There were only about 50 zombies left, and they were strung together by a few hunters with ropes. They pulled them over. Only then did the researchers begin to pick fresh zombie samples with trembling hands. Several hunters pressed down the selected sample zombies. Sure and Happy put on special gloves and braces for these zombies to prevent them from scratching and biting humans. In the end, they chose more than 30 zombies with intact hands and feet and no obvious wounds on their bodies. After putting on the gloves and braces for these zombies, the researchers were obviously relieved. When the short-haired girl saw that there were more than 20 zombies left, she immediately became excited. She rolled up her sleeves. She spat into her hands and rubbed them. "The rest are all mine." As she spoke, she pulled out a short knife from her waist. Then, he slashed at one of the zombies. Crack, crack, she cut down the 20 zombies as if she was cutting melons and vegetables. Then, she kicked them one by one into the dam. She watched as the zombies splashed blood as high as a person in the water. The short-haired girl was as excited as a child playing with firecrackers during the New Year. At this time, it was already 6:00 in the evening. In less than 2 hours, it would be dark. Sure originally thought that they were going to camp by the dam. But he didn't expect the ponytailed leader of the hunter group to give an order. Just now, a hunter saw zombies in the residential area to the east. "While it's not dark yet, let's clean up the zombies in the residential area and see if there are any resources in the residential area that can be used." She was now a level 2 psychokinesis, the strongest existence in the entire hunter group. Under her leadership, the hunter group could be said to be invincible in the past few years. Everyone was very convinced by her. Even those level 7 zombie hunters followed her lead. Moreover, these hunters had already killed their way to the top. While the sky was not dark yet, everyone wanted to kill more zombies. At this time, the leader gave the order, so they naturally rushed to the residential area to the east of the dam to search. However, no one expected that. When they went, something big happened. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.